Chapter 2868. Viscount. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows as a playful smile appeared on his face. Looks like the king of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom is quite generous. I thought your father would only be a baron. Qi Huangji nodded in agreement and said excitedly, Yes, I thought so too. At the very least, he would be given the title of baron. After all, the city lord was only a viscount. The Bloodfire Divine Kingdom belongs to the Great Yan Empire, and these noble titles are used throughout the Great Yan Empire. Therefore, it is very difficult to get a title in the Great Yan Empire. Even the royal family can only confer the title of Marquis at most. Our monarch is only a duke. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Although your father is a viscount, he will have the right to compete for the position of city lord in the future. If the Qi family grows stronger and manages it well, you might be able to rule a city. Qi Huangji was also excited, and his mind was filled with thoughts. Yes, if that day really comes, I will be the young city lord. Even now, my father's title is equal to the city lord's, and he won't have to worry about the city lord's revenge. I heard from my father that the Ning family of Tianxue County helped him a lot during his trip to the royal capital. If not for their help, it would have been very difficult for him to get the title of viscount. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, I see. Ning Xiyuan is engaged to you, so the Ning family is naturally happy to help. You are now the heir to the title of viscount, so you are considered to be compatible with Ning Xiyuan. Qi Huangji looked a little embarrassed and quickly waved his hand. Let's not talk about this. Let's get down to business. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Your father's title of viscount is the Qi family's protective talisman. Neither the Bloodsword sect nor the city lord's residence can openly go against the Qi family. By the way, has this matter been confirmed? Has the king issued the edict? Qi Huangji quickly replied, The king made this decision during the court meeting today. He even praised my father in front of all the civil and military officials. The edict to confer the title of viscount on my father was announced today. It would take another 2 days for the news to spread to all parts of the divine nation. As for the official conferment, as well as the official document issued by the king, it will take a few days for it to reach Qingshan City. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, In that case, we still can't relax our vigilance in the next few days. Qi Huangji furrowed his brows and asked doubtfully, Brother Tianqing, my father has been conferred the title of viscount, and the news is about to spread. If the Bloodsword sect and the city lord's mansion give up on revenge, wouldn't this matter be settled? Ji Tianqing asked with a playful smile, Why are you so sure that they will give up? Yuan Jie and Consecrator Shi are dead, and the 4th elder of the Bloodsword sect was also killed by me. Their plan has failed, and they have lost so much face and suffered such heavy losses. How could they give up? Qi Huangji frowned and said, If, and I'm just saying if, they feel that the cost of dealing with the Qi family is too great, and it's more than what they can gain. Are they really going to swallow their anger and not seek revenge? Ji Tianqing said with a calm expression, It wasn't easy for the Qi family to be conferred the title of viscount, and it will soon soar. You want stability and don't want to take risks and continue to oppose the Bloodsword sect. Huangji, I understand your feelings. But think about it carefully. Will the Bloodsword sect care about a viscount with no power? Will they really give up on the profound light cave? Qi Huangji was silent for a while before he gently shook his head. Ji Tianqing sighed and said sincerely, The Qi family is going to soar, and you also want to inherit the title of viscount and enjoy the life of a noble, no longer experiencing twists and turns. But all of this is based on the Qi family being strong enough that no one dares to provoke them. Don't entrust your life and future to the enemy being merciful. Qi Huangji's body shook, and his eyes flashed with a bright light. Don't entrust your life and future to the enemy being merciful? He muttered these words to himself, as if he suddenly had an epiphany and was enlightened. Brother Tianqing, since the Blood Sword sect and the City Lord's mansion won't let us off, what should we do next? When Qi Huangji looked at Ji Tianqing again, his eyes were clear and resolute, no longer filled with confusion and hesitation. Ji Tianqing was inwardly gratified at his reaction. This kid had never worried about the Qi family's business or future before, but now he was finally growing up and becoming sensible. Before the king's decree reaches Qingshan City, continue to be vigilant and protect the Profound Light Cave and the Qi family. All that's left is to wait for the City Lord's mansion and the Blood Sword sect to make a move. Qi Huangji nodded in understanding, then asked, "In other words, we just need to take precautions and wait for changes." Ji Tianqing nodded. Qi Huangji said in a serious tone, "Good. Then I'll give the order now to transfer a large number of elite guards to protect the Qi family and the Profound Light Cave. The Qi family is in Qingshan City, so the other party won't dare to make a move openly, so the defense can be reduced appropriately. However, the Divine Beast Valley and the Profound Light Cave must be heavily guarded." Ji Tianqing added, "Focus on guarding the Divine Beast Valley. I'll set up 2 large formations to protect the entire Profound Light Island, so you don't need to worry." "That's good." Qi Huangji was even more confident now. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then asked, "Oh right, where are the sea race in the setting sun sea region active? How far is the nearest sea race tribe from Profound Light Island?" Qi Huangji was startled, then frowned and said, "This is the edge of the setting sun sea region, so it's very close to land. The sea race basically won't appear here. The nearest sea race tribe seems to be called the Black Shark tribe. This tribe has about 20,000 people, and it's about 800,000 kilometers away from here." "Brother Tianqing, why are you suddenly asking this question? Are you worried?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a low voice, "Someone can't openly go against the Qi family, and he hates the Qi family to the bone. Maybe he'll take the risk and kill with a borrowed knife. Although the probability of this happening is low, we still have to take precautions." Qi Huangji narrowed his eyes, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, Qingshan City, in a study of the City Lord's mansion. Yuan Qingkong, the City Lord in a purple robe, was curled up in a spacious armchair, staring at the window with lifeless eyes. He used to be a majestic, domineering, burly, and imposing man. But now, his face was haggard, his expression gloomy, and his reddened eyes sunken. During this period, the pain of losing his son was too great a blow to him. His world had almost lost its color, and he spent every day in darkness and depression. The murderous aura accumulated in his chest, and he couldn't calm it down. After a long time, he suddenly opened his mouth and murmured in a low voice, "Yenzong, have I been keeping a low profile for too long? How dare you let those rats and cats ride on my head?" End of chapter. Chapter 2869. The person called Yen Zong was a stooped old man in a gray robe. His face was dark, and his body was as thin as a stick. He stood quietly in the corner of the study. He did not make any sound, nor did he emit any aura. He was like a blurry gray shadow that did not attract any attention. However, his identity was not simple. He was Yuan Qingkong's most trusted butler and the second strongest person in the City Lord mansion. A 4th-level Divine Monarch Realm expert. Hearing Yuan Qingkong's murmur, Yen Zong kept his head down and his hands in his sleeves. He did not even lift his eyelids. "Of course, the Qi clan will not forget that your hands were once stained with blood, and you did not dare to go against the City Lord mansion. However, that Qi clan's consecrator is an outsider. He was reckless and courted his own death. With your current identity, no matter how angry you are, you can only endure it. You cannot take revenge openly." Yuan Qingkong nodded slightly and said coldly, "The Qi clan's consecrator must die. I will personally cut off his head, and make it into a wine cup to comfort my son's soul in heaven." Yen Zong did not comment and continued, I just received news that Qi Tianlong entered the capital with Ning Qingfeng's help. He has already reported his achievement to the king. The king has announced that Qi Tianlong will be conferred the title of Viscount. In terms of title and reputation, he is already equal to you. You cannot do anything to the Qi clan. Otherwise, the king will be unhappy and the other nobles will kick you when you are down. For example, the Ning clan. Hee. Yuan Qingkong grinned coldly, revealing a row of white teeth. Can't do anything to the Qi clan? I can't wait to raise the Qi clan to the ground and leave no one alive. However, this needs further planning. The most important thing now is to get rid of the Qi clan's consecrator. Yan Zong nodded slightly and said, "It's because of the Qi clan's consecrator that things have developed to this stage. Before this, the Qi clan was not even qualified to compete with the City Lord Mansion." Yuan Qingkong stopped talking about this matter and asked in a low voice, "Is there any news from the Black Mermaid tribe? Did that ugly black fish monster ask for an exorbitant price again?" Yan Zong nodded and said, "As you expected, the Black Mermaid King wants 30,000 pearls, 30,000 sets of high-grade heavenly god equipment, and 300 million divine stones." A cold glint flashed in Yuan Qingkong's eyes. He sneered and said, "Damn those black fish monsters, they are indeed greedy and cunning. It knew that I wouldn't be able to do it myself, so it dared to ask for such a ridiculous price. However, since it can destroy the profound light cave and kill the Qi family's consecrator, I'm willing to accept this condition." Sigh. Yan Zong sighed softly and said in a calm voice, "Actually, you don't have to work with the Sea tribe at all. Once this matter was exposed and used by those with ulterior motives, it would become an excuse for other forces to attack the City Lord Manor. After all, Qingshan City's location is rather sensitive, and the king has always been wary of you colluding with the Sea race. As long as you endure for a few more days, the Blood Sword sect will naturally deal with the Qi family and kill their reverend." Yuan Qingkong said in a low voice, "Of course I know that the Blood Sword sect won't let the Qi family and the Profound Light cave off. But I must avenge my son's death with my own hands. Moreover, I can't wait that long." The fourth elder of the Blood Sword sect had been killed, and the fifth elder had been heavily injured. All of the elite disciples he had brought with him had been killed. After suffering such heavy losses, the Blood Sword sect will definitely re-evaluate the Qi family's strength and won't dare to act rashly. In the short term, the Blood Sword sect won't act rashly. Yan Zong fell silent, because he knew that Yuan Qingkong's analysis wasn't far from the truth. After a moment of silence, he said in a calm voice, "Since you've made up your mind, I'll go and reply to the Black Mermaid King." "Go." Yuan Qingkong waved his hand and said, "Tell the Black Mermaid King that I can agree to his condition, but I also have a condition. The Qi family's consecrator must be captured alive. If I can't kill that bastard with my own hands, why should I pay such a price?" "Understood," Yan Zong replied and immediately disappeared into the darkness. Yuan Qingkong was the only one left in the study, and he immediately fell silent. He looked at the window with a cold gaze and silently thought, "What kind of torture should I use to vent my hatred after capturing the Qi family's consecrator?" For 3 consecutive days, the Profound Light Island was very peaceful. No one from the Blood Sword sect came for revenge, and the City Lord Manor didn't do anything. Even the Qi Mansion and the Divine Beast Garden were safe and sound. Everyone in the Qi family had an illusion. Did the Blood Sword sect and the City Lord Manor admit defeat? The other party's plan had failed, and they had suffered a great loss. They shouldn't dare to attack again, right? With this thought, many of the Qi family's craftsmen and miners threw themselves into the mining business. Batch after batch of divine stones and divine crystals were transported out of the workshop. Qi Tianxing, Qi Tianqian, and Qi Huanji took turns to escort the divine stones and divine crystals back to the Qi Mansion in Azure Mountain City. During these 3 days, Qi Tianxing was also very busy. He spent 300,000 divine stones and 300 divine crystals to set up 2 high-grade monarch-grade divine formations on the Profound Light Island. A defensive formation protected the entire Profound Light Cave. A powerful killing formation covered the entire island. In this way, any enemy that stepped onto the Profound Light Island would be mercilessly killed. Even an expert like the Blood Sword Sect's 4th Elder couldn't destroy the defensive formation of the Profound Light Cave. Compared to before, the defensive strength of the Profound Light Cave had increased by 8 times. When Ji Tianqing finished setting up the arrays, the 2 arrays began to operate. Only then did Qi Huangji feel completely at ease. Brother Tianqing, I didn't expect your attainments in the array Dao to be so profound. It's simply amazing. With the 2 divine formations you set up, the Profound Light Island is impregnable. Even if the Blood Sword Sect and the City Lord Manor come back, they can forget about taking half a step onto the island. Qi Huangji had been watching from the side for a long time while Ji Tianqing was setting up the formations. He had seen with his own eyes that someone could combine a trapping formation, a killing formation, a disorienting formation, and a sealing formation together. Moreover, the 2 divine formations were high-grade monarch-grade divine formations that contained more than 200 million variations. It was truly complicated to the extreme. Seeing Qi Huangji so happy and carefree, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but remind him. Although there are 2 divine formations protecting the Profound Light Island, you can't let your guard down. There are many experts in the Blood Sword Sect, so you might be able to find a way to break it. On normal days, you still need to strengthen the patrols and maintain vigilance. You can't let your guard down. Qi Huangji quickly nodded and said, I understand, don't worry. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, Brother Tianqing, the Divine Beast Garden's defenses are weak. I'm also very worried. How about you go to the Divine Beast Garden again and set up 2 divine formations? A few days ago, the demonic beasts and divine beasts that had escaped from the Divine Beast Garden were found by the Qi family. Although the Qi family had only recovered half of the divine beasts, the other half had long since left Azure Mountain City and was very difficult to catch. But even so, the Qi family had recovered nearly half of their losses. Now, the Divine Beast Garden had returned to normal. Chapter 2870. Originally, Ji Tianqing was going to refuse Qi Huangji. The God Beast Garden had suffered heavy losses after the attack and had yet to recover. According to his estimation, the Blood Sword Sect would not attack the God Beast Garden again in the near future. It would be a waste of time to go to the God Beast Garden to set up a formation. But how could he refuse Qi Huangji's request? Moreover, this was a small matter to him. Okay, then you stay here. I'll go to the God Beast Valley. Ji Tianqing handed over the matters of Profound Light Island to Qi Huangji and left. Whoosh! He turned into a white streak of light, streaking across the sky like a bolt of lightning, heading straight for the south. Qi Huangji stood in the air above the island and waved at his back. Brother Tianqing, I'll leave the matter of the God Beast Valley to you. Ji Tianqing did not say anything. He sped up and flew across the sky, quickly disappearing. Qi Huangji waited until his figure disappeared into the sky before flying back to the mine. At the same time, about 30,000 miles to the east of Profound Light Island, under the boundless ocean's surface, there were clusters of black shadows moving rapidly in the water. There were at least 100 black shadows that were chasing southward at the speed of light. Not only on the east side of Profound Light Island, but also 30,000 miles to the west. 30,000 miles to the south, there were more than 300 black shadows hiding at the bottom of the sea. The black shadows spread out and formed a 100-mile-long defensive line. As time passed, Ji Tianqing was getting closer and closer. The 300 black shadows left the bottom of the sea and gradually flew to the surface. 15 minutes later, when Ji Tianqing was only 500 miles away from these black shadows, all of them rushed out of the sea. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. More than 300 black shadows appeared in the air above the sea, blocking Ji Tianqing's path. Ji Tianqing, who was speeding, suddenly sensed the abnormality and stopped in the air. He frowned and looked indifferently at the 300-plus figures. There were more than 320 strange people with a human body and a fishtail. They were all 20 feet tall, slender and muscular, and covered in black scales. Although the upper body of these mermen was somewhat similar to that of humans. They also had a head, 2 arms, and a torso. But their heads were huge, and they all had wide bloody mouths, revealing 2 rows of sharp fangs. Even their hands were sharp claws, connected by black webbing like duck feet. These black mermen were ugly and ferocious, emitting a cold aura. 300 of them had strength between the 3rd and 6th level of the celestial god realm. They wore simple armor and held in their hands spears and swords and halberds. To their hands, to their hands, to their hands, to God. The other 20 mermaids were even more muscular, wearing complete armor and wielding excellent divine weapons. To God, to God, to God, to God, to God, to God, to God. Ji Tianqing's gaze swept across the sky. After seeing the appearance of those mermen, the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. To the two? To heaven, to Huanto Lord. To Ji, to God, to his. Of course, Ji Tianqing knew the oceanic race. He immediately guessed the origin of those black mermen. At this moment, the 20 leaders of the Black Merman tribe suddenly raised their spears and swords and shouted, "To capture him!" As soon as they said that, the 300 Black Merman tribe warriors let out ear-piercing screeches. Everyone brandished their swords and sabers, unleashing all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques to besiege Ji Tianqing. Swoosh, 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 bam, 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 bam. Thousands of divine powers shone with colorful lights, covering thousands of miles of the sea. The Black Merman tribe warriors also swallowed the endless seawater, turning it into thousands of black water arrows, shooting at Ji Tianqing. The leaders of the Black Merman tribe were afraid that Ji Tianqing would escape. They even joined forces to cast a spell, absorbing the seawater within a radius of 10,000 miles, condensing a screen of black water with a radius of 1,000 miles, sealing this region of the sea. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes turned colder, and the murderous intent in his heart grew stronger. He didn't even give a reason or an excuse before he started killing. As this thought flashed through his mind, he raised his hands without hesitation and used his divine powers. Sword rain. Following his cold shout, tens of thousands of cold lights lit up in the sky. Thousands of starry swords fell like meteors, covering thousands of miles of the sea. At the same time, Ji Tianqing used himself as a sword to counterattack. He turned into a giant golden sword that was thousands of feet long and charged at the Black Merman tribe warriors. Bam! 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 The divine spell light that blotted out the sky was shattered by the dazzling golden sword, and billions of colorful fragments splashed out. The giant golden sword slashed into the crowd and instantly killed more than 20 Black Merman tribe warriors, shattering their bodies and causing blood to splatter everywhere. Then, tens of thousands of starry swords poured down and shrouded the sea. Bam! 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 The attacks of the 300 Black Merman tribe warriors were destroyed by the starry swords. Every Black Merman tribe warrior was hit by at least 3 starry swords and exploded into pieces of flesh and blood. In an instant, the sky and sea within thousands of miles turned into a dark red world. Blood rained down and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The sea was in complete chaos and huge waves were created. Soon, the first round of sword rain ended. 70% of the 300 Black Merman tribe warriors were killed and only 90 were left. The 20 leaders of the Black Mermaid clan, who were relatively stronger, were also badly wounded and in a sorry state. This result was out of everyone's expectations. The surviving warriors of the Black Mermaid tribe were dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with shock. However, there were still more than 3,000 starry swords that had not disappeared. Under Ji Tianqing's control, these starry swords danced wantonly, forming a sword storm that swept across the surface of the sea. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sword storm that was thousands of feet tall and hundreds of miles in radius was like a tornado. Everywhere it went, no Black Merman tribe warrior could stop it. If they were slightly slower, they would be swallowed by the sword storm, and not even their remains were left. When the sword storm flew out thousands of miles, its power was depleted and it finally dissipated. The 3,000 miles of sea was in complete chaos. The endless sea was also dyed red. As for the Black Merman tribe warriors, only about 20 of them survived. Most of them were 8th and 9th level Heavenly God realm leaders. Although they were still alive, they were covered in blood and had broken limbs. Their powers were greatly reduced. More importantly, they were all scared out of their wits by Ji Tianqing's terrifying power. When Ji Tianqing transformed into a starry sword and attacked, they were so scared that they scattered and fled. While they were running for their lives, they were also cursing madly. Bastard! We were all fooled by the king. That ugly god tribe warrior is not a heavenly god. He is definitely a lord god. Didn't the king say that we could capture him alive with a few dozen warriors? How can he be so powerful? Chapter 2871. In fact, the ocean race was a cold-blooded race. They were cruel and bloodthirsty. The boundless ocean was their home ground. Fighting in the sea, their fighting strength was extremely valiant. 300 God race experts would not be able to defeat the 300 Black Mermaid. However, the Black Mermaids were fooled by the Black Mermaid's king. They all thought that their target was only a peak celestial god. Therefore, they did not think highly of Ji Tianqing. They thought that it would be easy to capture him. The result was obvious. Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength and cruel methods were beyond their imagination. In the blink of an eye, their psychological defenses were destroyed. They were defeated. Swish! Ji Tianqing's dazzling golden sword light pierced through the sky like lightning. In the next instant, he caught up with the two Black Mermaid. Bam! Bam! The dazzling golden sword light that was hundreds of meters long pierced through them and smashed them into pieces. Not only did their physical bodies turn into smithereens, but even their godheads were smashed into pieces. After killing the two Black Mermaids, the dazzling golden sword light did not stop and charged toward the Black Mermaids not far away. Swish! Bam! Boom! Crack! Every dull sound represented the death of a Black Mermaid. The dazzling golden sword light flashed and danced in the sky. It was as terrifying as a talisman. 100 breaths later, the remaining 20 overleaders of the Black Mermaid clan were all killed by Ji Tianqing. Not a single one was left alive. It did not matter if they flew into the sky, hid under the sea, or dived into the rock layer. It was all useless. Swoosh! The dazzling golden sword light stopped in the sky. With a flash, the sword light dissipated. Ji Tianqing appeared. He stood in the sky and looked down at the ocean. He used his capturing techniques to collect the godhead fragments scattered in the ocean. 320 Black Mermaids were killed. There were at least 3,000 godhead fragments scattered in the ocean within a few thousand miles. Although those Black Mermaids were weak, even if Ji Tianqing devoured their godhead fragments, it would not be as fast as devouring the divine essence mine. However, there was a difference between the two. When he devoured the divine crystal lode, he could only devour the divine energy of various elements to increase his strength and realm. Devouring the quintessence fragments of the various deities would not only allow one to rapidly gain strength, but they would also be able to gather a large number of divine Tao laws. Inside Ji Tianqing's spatial ring were the godhead fragments of the blood sword sect's fourth elder and many other experts. He wanted to wait for a suitable opportunity to devour those godhead fragments and condense even more divine Tao laws. This way, he could break through to the Divine Lord realm even faster. In my previous life, when I reached peak Divine King realm, I only grasped over 1,000 laws. It's different this time. With the devouring divine ability, I'll definitely be able to condense 3,000 great Taoists. Perhaps, only by gathering 3,000 great Taoists can one break through the restrictions of the heavenly Tao? Ji Tianxing pondered as he collected the quintessence fragment. He had this idea a long time ago. It was precisely because of this that he was passionate about collecting Godhead fragments and ceaselessly seizing the divine Tao laws of others. Soon, 15 minutes passed. Ji Tianxing found more than 2,000 pieces of Godhead fragments in the several thousand kilometers of sea. Right at this moment, on the eastern and western seas, a large group of pitch-black figures leaped out, pouncing over with murderous intent. Ji Tianxing looked up. It was another 200 black mermaid race warriors. These were all ordinary warriors, their strength between the 3rd and 5th level of the celestial god realm. Ji Tianxing looked at them coldly. With a flash of brilliance in his right hand, he pulled out the sword of burial of heaven. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. When the two sides were 50 kilometers apart, Ji Tianxing raised the sword of burial of heaven and prepared to attack. However, the two groups of black mermaid race warriors stopped on the sea. They were not in a hurry to attack. Instead, they spread out and formed a circle with a radius of 100 kilometers, surrounding Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing glanced at these people and did not take them to heart. He raised his head and looked toward the north. His eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze turning sinister. The main character is finally here. In the sky above the northern sea, there was a large group of black figures rushing over at lightning speed. There were about 50 black mermaid race warriors, all wearing excellent armor and divine weapons. The 3 leading black mermaid race experts were exceptionally large, and their auras were also extremely sinister. Especially the leading black mermaid race expert. He was more than 100 feet tall, and the black scales all over his body flickered with a cold light. He actually had 4 arms and 2 heads. His bloody mouth was filled with shark-like fangs. Wherever he flew past, the ocean, which was hundreds of miles deep, was frozen into ice. Ji Tianxing's gaze locked onto him as he muttered softly, "This person's strength is even more unfathomable than the blood sword sect's 4th elder. He might have reached the 5th level of the Divine Lord realm. He should be the king of the Black Mermaid race?" Other than the Black Mermaid King, the other 2 Black Mermaid race experts could not be underestimated either. These 2 Black Mermaid race experts were one size smaller than the Black Mermaid King. Their auras were also slightly weaker. Even so, their strength had reached the 3rd level of the Divine Lord realm. They were wearing ice-blue monarch-grade divine armor, holding broadswords in their hands. Their entire bodies were filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. Swoosh! In an instant, the Black Mermaid King and the rest flew into the encirclement. 30 miles away from Ji Tianxing, the Black Mermaid King and the rest stopped. Instantly, all of the Black Mermaid race's gazes gathered on Ji Tianxing. The Black Mermaid King stared with his 4 dark green little eyes, sizing up Ji Tianxing a few times before opening his bloody mouth and asking in a strange voice, "Kid, you're the Qi family's retainer?" Ji Tianxing did not answer but asked instead, "You're the Black Mermaid King? If I didn't guess wrongly, the 2 beside you should be the Black Mermaid race's protector and priest, right?" He was not unfamiliar with the sea race's situation. The sea race normally lived in tribes. Only a small number of powerful races would establish cities and kingdoms. In the sea race tribes, the 3 most powerful leaders were the tribe king, protector, and priest. Ji Tianxing could tell that one wearing heavy armor and holding a broadsword should be the Black Mermaid race's protector, and that one wearing ice-blue light armor and holding a pitch-black broadsword should be the Black Mermaid race's priest. The Black Mermaid King bared his fangs and shouted ferociously, "Kid, since you know our identities, you should know that you will definitely die." Don't make unnecessary sacrifices. Just surrender obediently. Surrender obediently? Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, he revealed a cold smile on his face. Black Mermaid King, you are the tribe king of the sea race. How can you be in cahoots with the Qingshan City Lord? He must have promised you some benefit. As a condition of the deal, you have to capture me and hand me over to him, right? The Black Mermaid King was stunned for a while before he laughed out loud. Ha ha. Kid, you're not stupid. You can roughly guess it. What a surprise. That's right. That old bastard wants me to capture you alive. He wants to kill you personally to take revenge for his unlucky son. End of chapter. Chapter 2872. The king of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom hated having close relations with the Sea Tribe. Once the news of the Qingshan City Lord colluding with the Black Mermaid tribe spread, the king would be enraged. The other aristocratic forces would also use this opportunity to attack and impeach the Qingshan City Lord. Therefore, the Qingshan City Lord would not reveal the news. Even if he was questioned, he would not admit it. The Black Mermaid King was different. He was only working with the Qingshan City Lord and had no relationship with him. There was no need for him to help the Qingshan City Lord hide the news. Moreover, in his eyes, Ji Tianqing was already a dead man. What was there to hide from a dead man? Ji Tianqing nodded and laughed coldly. Just as I expected, Yuan Chenkong is really impatient. The Black Mermaid King's eyelids drooped and his eyes flashed coldly. Kid, don't waste time. You only have two choices now. Either you surrender or I will beat you half to death and hand you over to the Qingshan City Lord. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said with a playful smile, No, I have a better idea. You'll definitely be interested. The Black Mermaid King was stunned and laughed coldly. What? Are you scared? Since you want to surrender, don't talk about conditions with me. Ji Tianqing said calmly, Compared to the Qi family and me, the City Lord's residence is obviously richer. I suggest you work with me and put on a show to teach the Qingshan City Lord an unforgettable lesson. The Black Mermaid King laughed out loud. Ha ha! You are too naive. I have already made an agreement with him. As long as I hand you over to him, I will get a large amount of resources. What right do you have to talk about working with me? Ji Tianqing pointed at the dark red seawater beneath his feet and said, The 320 experts you hid here have all been killed by me. The moment he said that, the Black Mermaid tribe's guardian and priest frowned and looked very serious. The expressions of the 200 black mackerel warriors around him changed drastically as well, revealing a look of extreme shock. Even the Black Mermaid King's pupils constricted as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Of course he knew that the black mackerel warriors who were lying in ambush at the south of Profound Light Island had failed to stop Ji Tianqing and suffered great casualties. However, he did not witness the process of the 320 black mermaid warriors being killed with his own eyes. He had thought that the black mackerel warriors had been defeated, and that there might be hundreds of survivors who had fled. Who would have thought that the result would actually be a complete wipeout? After a moment of silence, the Black Mermaid King calmed himself down and said in a deep voice, Lad, I already know that you do have some ability. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given the City Lord of Qingshan such a headache, to the point that he had to ask me to deal with you. But even so, it was not a big deal. This king's protectors and priests have this ability, and they are not weaker than you. Now we, 3 Sir Gods, will deal with you, in addition to more than 200 experts. Your chances of winning are 0. Stop stalling for time, this king will take you down now. With that, the Black Mermaid King waved his sharp claws and gave the order to attack. 200 black mackerel warriors and 50 experts of the black mackerel tribe roared in unison, waving their swords and sabers as they surrounded Jian Wushuang. The earth-shattering divine art shadows and stormy waves that blotted out the sky immediately submerged Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing remained calm and said in a firm tone, Black Mermaid King, You will regret rejecting this opportunity immediately. As he said that, his body radiated a brilliant golden light and he instantly turned into 1,000 feet tall giant from the Jin family. He was like a god of war in golden armor that had appeared out of nowhere. Die! Ji Tianxing roared. He formed a divine skill with both hands and moved it quickly in front of him. Instantly, he formed a mysterious and complicated divine seal. 10,000 sword crossing. With the explosion of divine power, 10,000 rays of sword light appeared in the sky. Every ray of sword light was 10,000 feet long. They were colorful and contained a divine power that could tear apart heaven and earth. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 10,000 five-colored huge swords poured down like meteors, covering 1,000 miles of sea region. The heaven and earth had completely turned into a world of sword light and sword chi. Everyone's figures were drowned. Only the five-colored dazzling light was left in the heaven and earth. Immediately after, there was a loud explosion that reverberated between heaven and earth, spreading for thousands of miles. At first glance, this 10,000 sword crossing looked like Ji Tianxing's other divine power sword technique, sword rain. But in reality, this was the advanced version of sword rain. Not only did the 10,000 swords come from outer space and attack the target violently, the 10,000 five-colored huge swords would also form a sword formation that was thousands of miles wide, sealing and suppressing the area. The 10,000 swords intersected and danced in the air, continuously killing the target. Within thousands of miles, all the targets would be torn apart and turned into dregs. Most importantly, the 10,000 five-colored huge swords contained 36 types of power of law. Within the sword formation, the power of law suppressed everything, turning it into a domain of extreme chaos. More than 200 black mackerel warriors and experts were sealed by the sword formation and suppressed by the power of law. Their divine power became chaotic and violent. They could not even defend or dodge, let alone control their divine power and use their divine skills to counterattack. Therefore, within the sword formation, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and screams of agony could be heard. It was as terrifying as purgatory. In just 10 breaths, almost half of the black mackerel warriors were killed by the 10,000 sword. 20 breaths later, almost all of the 200 black mackerel warriors were dead. 60% of the 50 elite experts were also killed. Only 20 black mackerel warriors who were severely injured and on the verge of death were still struggling to hold on. Luckily, the black mackerel king, the guardian, and the priest used all kinds of divine skills to resist the power of the sword formation. If not for the protection of these 3 experts, the 20 black mackerel warriors would have been killed. Even so, the 3 experts were injured and could only barely hold on. As time passed, their divine power quickly declined and they could not continue. They could not even take care of themselves and had no extra energy to protect the 20 black mackerel warriors who were lucky enough to survive. Bam! Bam bam! Following the sound of explosions, one after another. One by one, the black mackerel warriors were killed by the sword light, their divine heads shattered. The number of people continued to decrease. 18, 17, 16, the black mackerel warriors who were lucky enough to survive fell into deep despair and fear. The black mackerel king, the priest, and the guardian were filled with grief and anger, but there was nothing they could do. No matter how strong the 3 of them were, they could only block the 10,000 swords and not be severely injured. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to break the sword formation and turn defeat into victory. Ah! Damn bastard, just how strong is he? The black mackerel king blocked the 10,000 swords and roared in anger. The priest roared with grief and anger. Could he be a high god lord? Despicable Qinshan city lord. He has caused so much trouble for our black mackerel tribe. The guardian suddenly realized and cursed with red eyes. No wonder that bastard was willing to agree to the king's conditions. We have been tricked. End of chapter. Chapter 2873. At this moment, the three experts were regretting their decision. If they had known that Ji Tianqing was so powerful, they would definitely not have cooperated with the Qingshan City Lord. Even if the Qingshan City Lord agreed to the Black Mermaid King's conditions and gave them rich resources and wealth. However, compared to the losses of the Black Mermaid tribe, those resources were not worth mentioning at all. Until now, 500 Black Mermaid warriors had been killed and more than 50 elite experts had died. Such heavy losses would be a heavy blow to the Black Mermaid tribe. The Black Mermaid tribe would not be able to recover for at least 30 years. After all, this tribe's power was at the bottom of the setting sun ocean region. The entire tribe's population was only slightly more than 20,000. There were only 1,000 Heaven God warriors and less than 100 elite experts above the 7th level of the Heaven God realm. There were only the Black Mermaid King, the priest, and the guardian of the God realm experts. In the current situation, these three God Lords were trapped in the sword formation. If there was no turning point, they would most likely be killed. By then, the three leaders of the Black Mermaid tribe would die, and more than half of the elite experts and warriors would die. The outcome of the Black Mermaid tribe could be imagined. At this thought, not only were the elite experts filled with despair. Even the Black Mermaid King, the priest, and the guardian felt that the world was collapsing and the end of the world was coming. Finally, when there were only 12 elite experts left and the three divine monarchs were severely injured, the divine monarch realm experts were also severely injured. The Black Mermaid King finally could not take the huge psychological pressure and roared at the top of his lungs. "Stop! You win! I admit defeat!" The hoarse and deep roar reverberated in the air, and even covered the sound of the swords breaking through the air. The priest and the guardian looked at each other and revealed bitter expressions. Their eyes were very dim. Both of them could feel how humiliated and tragic the Black Mermaid King was when he shouted that he admitted defeat. After all, he was still full of confidence and did not take Ji Tianqing seriously. In the blink of an eye, he was slapped in the face by the cruel reality. However, both of them also understood that the Black Mermaid King had to make this painful decision. If he did not admit defeat, not only would they die here, the Black Mermaid tribe would also be finished. The Black Mermaid King had to take the big picture into consideration and had to endure the humiliation. The 12 elite experts who were lucky enough to survive did not have the time to think so much. There was only one thought in their minds. Our king has admitted defeat and surrendered. Shouldn't the sword formation be withdrawn? At this moment, the sword formation that blotted out the sky suddenly stopped. Swish! Swish! The 5-colored giant swords that were flying back and forth in the sky were suddenly retracted. Tens of thousands of giant swords floated in the sky, forming a sword net with a radius of 1,000 miles. Even though it still looked majestic and awe-inspiring. But the sharp sword intent was restrained, and so was the invisible suppressive force. The Black Shark King stood on the spot in a daze. His eyes stared blankly at the blue sea and sky outside the array. His 4 eyes were unfocused, and his mind was blank. It was as if his soul, confidence, and dignity had all been shattered by the humiliation and ceased to exist. 12 elite warriors, who were covered in blood and had broken limbs, fell limply onto the sea surface. They closed their eyes and floated with the waves, breathing heavily. At this moment, they didn't want to care about anything. They just wanted to return to the bottom of the sea to rest and heal. Swish! The golden giant, which was hundreds of meters tall, suddenly shrank to 8 feet tall and returned to its original size. Ji Tianqing walked through the 5-colored sword net and arrived in front of the Black Shark King and the others. He looked at the Black Shark King calmly. "It seems like you haven't lost your mind. You still know how to protect the Black Shark tribe." The Black Shark King looked up at him, and his empty eyes regained their calmness. All his anger and killing intent had dissipated. He said in a low voice, "Consecrator Tianqing, you have no enmity with me. The Black Shark tribe and the Chi family have never interfered with each other. It's just that I was bewitched by the Green Mountain City Lord and was blinded by benefits. That's why I did such a foolish thing. Here, this king solemnly apologizes to you." After saying that, the Black Mermaid King bowed to Ji Tianqing in a very sincere manner. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place." The Black Shark King sighed and smiled bitterly. "That's right. I can only blame myself for being short-sighted and not thinking ahead. That's why I was used by the Green Mountain City Lord. Previously, I was arrogant and rejected your suggestion. I know that I brought this upon myself. I don't dare to ask for your forgiveness. I only hope that you can be lenient and let the people of the Black Shark tribe go. As for me, I'm at your disposal." With that, the Black Shark King closed his eyes and stretched out his arms, looking like he was willing to admit his mistake. Before Ji Tianqing could reply, the priest and the protector anxiously tried to dissuade him. "My king, you can't do this. You're the leader of the tribe. How can you abandon your people and accept your punishment?" "My king, even if we made a mistake and offended Consecrator Tianqing, we've already been punished. We've already been punished and suffered heavy casualties. Why don't we give Consecrator Tianqing the conditions that the Green Mountain City Lord gave us and beg for his forgiveness?" The Black Shark King smiled bitterly. "The Green Mountain City Lord is very cunning. He only paid 20% of the price in advance. As for the remaining 80% of the items, he will only give us after we complete the mission. With that bit of resources, how can Consecrator Tianqing?" Just yesterday, the Black Shark King received the resources and wealth from the City Lord's residence. 6,000 pearls, 6,000 sets of high-grade heavenly god equipment, and 60 million god stones. He didn't think that Ji Tianqing would be tempted by such a small amount of benefits and let him go. However, something that the Black Shark King didn't expect happened. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 5-colored giant sword that covered a radius of 1,000 miles suddenly disappeared. Ji Tianqing removed the sword formation. The invisible pressure that filled the air also disappeared. He looked at the Black Shark King sternly and said in a deep voice, "I think that the Protector's suggestion is very good. Give me all the conditions that the Green Mountain City Lord gave you. I'll treat it as your sincerity in apologizing. This matter will end here." Instantly, the Black Shark King was stunned. He looked at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. The priest and the protector were also stunned. They revealed a surprised expression. After a moment of silence, the priest and the protector let out a cry of relief. "Is this true? Consecrator Tianqing, you are actually so magnanimous. This is great. This is really great. That's right. We have no enmity with the Qi clan and Consecrator Tianqing. As long as we give those items to Tianqing, we will no longer be involved in this matter." However, the Black Shark King wasn't happy. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a complicated expression. He was surprised, touched, and a little embarrassed. "Consecrator Tianqing, thank you for being so magnanimous. I can't thank you enough. I can give you the 20% of the resources that the City Lord's residence sent yesterday. However, the remaining 80%. If the mission fails, we definitely won't be able to get it." Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, "I've said it just now. As long as you cooperate with me, you will definitely get it." Chapter 2874. Put on a show? The Black Mermaid King frowned as he stared at Ji Tianqing with a face filled with confusion. Before the battle, Ji Tianqing had already suggested this. Unfortunately, he didn't take Ji Tianqing seriously at that time and didn't take him seriously at all. Now that he heard this, the Black Mermaid King was very interested. Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, "Very simple. As long as you can make the Qingshan City Lord believe that you have successfully captured me, then he will definitely hand over the remaining 80% of the resources obediently. Moreover, you have to negotiate with him and get him to personally send it to the Black Mermaid tribe. The Black Mermaid King roughly understood what he meant and asked, "You mean that I will send a fake message to trick the Qingshan City Lord to the Black Mermaid tribe? Then we will set up an ambush in the Black Mermaid tribe and kill him together?" Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "That's right. So you agree?" The Black Mermaid King lowered his head and hesitated. Out of instinct, he did not want to let a dangerous person like Ji Tianqing enter the Black Mermaid tribe. After all, this guy had terrifying strength and could set off storms and huge waves. If he angered him, the entire Black Mermaid tribe would not be able to handle it and would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, he would use the Black Mermaid tribe as a battlefield to ambush and kill the Qingshan City Lord. By then, a huge battle would be unavoidable, and it would definitely bring a lot of trouble to the Black Mermaid tribe. Most importantly, the Qingshan City Lord dying in the Black Mermaid tribe was a very serious matter. That was equivalent to the Black Mermaid tribe openly becoming enemies with the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. In order to protect their reputation and dignity, the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom would most likely punish and annihilate the Black Mermaid tribe. That's too risky. The Black Mermaid King had been pondering and hesitating. Ji Tianqing smiled. "If you are not sincere, then don't waste my time. I don't mind killing the three of you first and destroying the Black Mermaid tribe before dealing with the City Lord's residents. In any case, this is not a difficult task for me." The Black Mermaid King's body trembled and his eyes dimmed. The priests and protectors were filled with humiliation but did not dare to say anything. Hiss! The Black Mermaid King took a deep breath and finally made up his mind. "Consecrated Tianqing, I can promise you that I will do as you say. But I have a request. This king and the Black Mermaid tribe can fully cooperate with you and help you kill the Green Mountain City Lord. But you have to swear that you will never attack the Black Mermaid tribe, much less kill my people." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "No problem. I don't have any grudges with the Black Shark tribe. As long as the Black Shark tribe doesn't provoke me, I will be fine. Moreover, after this matter is settled, I won't go to the Black Mermaid tribe anymore. That's the Oceanic Race's territory. My range of activity is only south of Profound Light Island." After receiving Ji Tianqing's guarantee, the Black Mermaid King didn't hesitate about the oath and nodded in agreement. "Since that's the case, I'll listen to your orders. Tell me, how do you want me to act?" Ji Tianqing asked without hesitation, "Do you have a photographic crystal that can record images?" "Of course I do." The Black Mermaid King nodded without hesitation. "Very good." Ji Tianqing asked again, "Then can you find someone from the divine race who has a similar body shape as me?" "This is a little difficult. Let me think." The Black Mermaid King frowned and tried to recall carefully. The priest at the side suddenly reminded, "King, aren't there 2 youths from the divine race locked up in our tribe's trench prison? Among them, there is a god youth who looks similar to Reverend Tianqing." The Black Mermaid King immediately remembered and hurriedly nodded. "Yes, I remember this matter. Those 2 explorers barged into my territory a few years ago and searched for treasures and resources everywhere. They even injured more than 10 people. One of the youths from the divine race does look similar to consecrated Tianqing." "Then it's easy." Ji Tianqing gave a satisfied smile and said, "There's no time to lose. Let's head to the Black Mermaid tribe now and start preparing." The Black Mermaid King acknowledged the order and followed Ji Tianqing to the north. The priest and the protector also took action. They brought the 12 heavily injured elites and rushed back in the direction they came from. Not long after, Qi Huanji, who was guarding Profound Light Island, received Ji Tianqing's message Jade Slip. In the Jade Slip, Ji Tianqing briefly explained what had happened previously. Then, he reminded Qi Huanji of a few things. After reading the contents of the Jade Slip, Qi Huanji was shocked and excited. His heart was filled with anticipation. "Oh my God! Brother Tianqing is too strong, isn't he? He had indeed guessed Yuan Chenkong's plan in advance. Moreover, he turned defeat into victory. He changed from passive to active and planned to kill Yuan Chenkong. This plan is too explosive. I have to cooperate with him fully and not reveal any flaws. After keeping the jade slip, Qi Huangji suppressed his excited emotions and put on a sorrowful and anxious expression. He hurriedly gathered the 2 deacons and the captains in the meeting hall to discuss countermeasures. In front of more than 30 experts, he announced a piece of news in a sorrowful tone. Just a while ago, Tianqing was on his way back to Azure Mountain City and was intercepted by the Black Mermaid tribe. The Black Mermaid tribe sent out 3 monarch god experts and both sides fought fiercely. Helper Tianqing was outnumbered and heavily injured. In the end, he fainted. He was captured by the Black Mermaid tribe. If the Qi family wanted to save him, they had to take out an astronomical amount of resources and treasures. Hearing this bad news, many experts were stunned. They were shocked and worried. But soon, everyone fell into a heated discussion. They argued endlessly and each had their own version of the story. Most people believed that Helper Tianqing had done a great favor for the Qi family. No matter what price they had to save Helper Tianqing. But there were also a few people who said that the Black Mermaid tribe would not kill Ji Tianqing for no reason. They must have been instructed by the City Lord's mansion or the Blood Sword sect. Even if the Qi family took out an astronomical amount of resources, they might not be able to save Ji Tianqing. Because the City Lord's mansion and the Blood Sword sect would definitely kill him as soon as possible. Moreover, the Black Mermaid tribe was famous for being cruel, cunning, and greedy. Once the Qi family took out an astronomical amount of resources, the Black Mermaid tribe would definitely extort them endlessly. All in all, these people suggested that Qi Huangji consider carefully. The core members were divided into 2 factions and argued fiercely. No one could convince the other. Qi Huangji flew into a rage and reprimanded those core members in the hall, cursing them for being ungrateful and heartless. He roared in front of everyone that he would save Ji Tianqing even if he had to go bankrupt. Even if everyone disagreed, he would go to the Black Mermaid tribe alone to save Ji Tianqing. The meeting hall became even more chaotic. Everyone tried to dissuade him. In the end, the 2 deacons, Qi Tianqing and Qi Tianqian, proposed a neutral stance. The 2 deacons said that the most important thing now was to strengthen the defenses of Profound Light Island to prevent the enemy from taking the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. As for saving Ji Tianqing, the Qi family first sent people to negotiate with the Black Mermaid tribe. They tried to bargain and haggle. Chapter 2875. In the middle of the night, Green Mountain City, in a study of the City Lord's mansion. As usual, Yuan Chenkong was curled up in his jade chair. His aura was dark and gloomy as he stared at the gemstone lamp on his desk. His haggard face became even more haggard. Qi Tong's bloodshot eyes were filled with endless killing intent and hatred. Suddenly, a hazy gray figure floated in from the dark corner of the study. This ghost-like gray figure was Yan Zong. Yuan Chenkong did not turn his head. He sensed Yan Zong's arrival and asked, 3 days have passed. Any news? It's done, Yan Zong replied. His voice was low and powerful, but there was not much joy in it. Yuan Chenkong, who had been lifeless all this while, suddenly had bright eyes. His seemingly aged body suddenly emitted a strong oppressive aura. He became energetic and asked expectantly, "Where's that little bastard? Where is he? I'm going to kill him now." Yan Zong replied calmly. After the Black Mermaid King received the deposit, he led a large group of experts and started the operation. He laid an ambush around Black Light Island for a day before that kid appeared and was about to return to Green Mountain City. The Black Mermaid King, the priest, and the protector worked together to fight that kid. They severely injured him and successfully captured him. However, The Black Mermaid King brought him back to the Black Mermaid tribe and asked us to bring the remaining 80% of the resources to the Black Mermaid tribe to complete the transaction. Hearing this, Yuan Chenkong frowned. His eyes were filled with gloom. My agreement with the Black Mermaid King was not like this. What kind of trick was that ugly black fish trying to play? This is only his side of the story. Why should I believe him? Yen Zong lifted his sleeve and took out a cold iron box the size of a washbasin. He handed it to Yuan Chenkong. This was sent by the messenger of the Black Mermaid tribe. This simple and crude black iron box exuded a frightening chill. It looked rough, but it was engraved with the unique patterns of the Sea tribe and the emblem of the Black Mermaid tribe. One look and one could tell that this box was made from the 1,000-year cold iron. It was unique to the Black Mermaid tribe. Yuan Chenkong checked the box and made sure that there was nothing wrong with it before he opened it. There were 3 things that caught his eye: a walnut-sized photographic crystal, an alligator skin envelope, and a blood-stained palm. The palm was as white as jade, and the meridians within it were clear and strong. Pure and powerful divine energy still remained. Yuan Chenkong could tell at a glance that the owner of this palm was a peak heavenly god from the god race. He held up his bloody palm and examined it over and over again. He closed his eyes and recalled for a moment before a gratified expression appeared on his face. The corners of his mouth curled into a cruel sneer. It really is his palm. The palm in front of him was exactly the same as Ji Tianqing's right hand in his memory. His vigilance and wariness immediately decreased by more than half. Then, he picked up the crystal-clear image recording crystal. After injecting divine power into the crystal lit up with dazzling multicolored light, forming a curtain of light in midair. Shwa! A fairly clear image appeared on the light screen that was 3 meters in length and width. In the sky above a vast sea, 3 Black Mermaid god lords were besieging a white-robed god clan member. Yuan Chenkong recognized 2 of the 3 Black Mermaid god lords. One of them was the Black Mermaid King, and the other was a Black Mermaid guardian. As for the white-robed god clan member, Yuan Chenkong would recognize him even if he turned into ashes. He was the Qi family's consecrator, the bastard who killed Yuan Jie and consecrator Shi. The 4 experts fought fiercely in the sky. Multicolored divine light covered the sky and created giant waves that were thousands of meters tall. Hundreds of Black Mermaid warriors were hiding thousands of miles away from the battlefield. They did not dare to get close to the area for fear of being affected. Their figures were blurry and blurry. Of course, Yuan Chenkong did not care about those small fries. His gaze and attention were focused on Ji Tianqing and the Black Mermaid King. Even though the image was blurry, the figures of the 4 experts could not be seen clearly amidst the divine light and giant waves. However, with Yuan Chenkong's eyesight, he could still see the result. Ji Tianqing's clothes were ragged, and his body was covered in blood. There were large wounds and bloody holes on his chest and back. His injuries were extremely miserable. Even though he looked ferocious, he was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He was fighting like a trapped beast. The Black Mermaid King, the Guardian, and the priest did not underestimate their opponent. They were very cautious. They gradually narrowed the encirclement and increased the intensity of their attack. They also increased the frequency of their attack. Ji Tianqing became more and more panicked. He tried his best to break out of the encirclement. Occasionally, one could see his face clearly. However, one could only see that he was filled with despair and helplessness. When he saw this, Yuan Chenkong clenched his fists tightly. His pale face was flushed red. He was extremely agitated. Even his lips were trembling. Even though he was not on the battlefield and could not see this scene with his own eyes. However, Ji Tianqing's helpless and hopeless expression made him very happy. He felt very relieved. After a while, an earth-shattering explosion appeared in the image. The Black Mermaid King, the Guardian, and the priest worked together and unleashed a magnificent divine ability. They heavily injured Ji Tianqing, causing him to spit out blood and fall into the sea. He used up all his energy and fainted on the spot. The Black Mermaid King stretched out his sharp claws and grabbed him from the sea. He raised his head and laughed proudly. The image ended there. The light from the image recording crystal was extinguished. The image returned to normal. Yuan Qingkong closed his eyes. After taking a deep breath, he sneered with resentment. Little bastard, you finally have a day like this. Don't worry, I'll go to the Black Mermaid tribe soon and take you away personally. Don't worry, I won't let you die easily. I'll let you live for 100 years, 1,000 years. I'll use all the cruelest methods to torture you for 1,000 years. Only then can I vent the hatred in my heart and comfort my son's soul in heaven. Yuan Qingkong's sinister words were like the voice of the Grim Reaper from hell. It made one's heart tremble. After calming himself down, he picked up the third item. It was an envelope made of sea crocodile skin. There was a letter written by the Black Mermaid King inside. Old bastard, I've already caught the person you want. I've locked him up in the trench prison. I'm waiting for you to deliver the money. Let me give you a friendly reminder. I've already revealed this information to the Qi family. I'm guessing that the Qi family might be willing to pay a higher price to redeem their offerings. So, you only have 3 days. I won't wait for you after that. Alright, remember to bring more money and treasures. If the Qi family offers a higher price, don't blame me for not giving you face. Ha 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 ha. It was a formal letter with the Black Mermaid King's seal on it. However, the content and tone of the letter were extremely arrogant and shameless. Yuan Qingkong was so angry that his face turned green. He smashed the table with his palm and roared, "This despicable Black Mermaid! He's waiting for a higher price to threaten me. Everyone, have a good weekend. Please give me a few tickets. Thank you." End of chapter. Chapter 2876. Yuan Qingkong was furious. However, he was not surprised at all. He knew the Black Mermaid King very well. He was a cunning, greedy, and despicable bastard. Yuan Qingkong had been wary of the Black Mermaid King and had held back. He had only given 20% of the resources as a deposit. The remaining 80% would be given to the Black Mermaid King after he completed his mission. He did not expect the Black Mermaid King to trick him. "You leaked the news to the Qi family and made them compete with me for that kid? Black Mermaid King, have you gone crazy from thinking about money? Why don't you just die?" The more Yuan Qingkong thought about it, the angrier he got. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Yan Zong remained silent and did not try to persuade him. He knew that the city lord had to vent the pain and anger in his heart. When the city lord calmed down, he would make the right choice. As expected, after 100 breaths, Yuan Qingkong calmed down. He asked expressionlessly, "Yan Zong, is there any news from the Mystic Light Island?" Yan Zong replied calmly, "Our spies in the Qi family sent back news not long ago. Yesterday afternoon, Qi Huanji received a letter from the Black Mermaid King and learned that the Qi family's consecrator had been kidnapped. Qi Huanji was at a loss. He quickly gathered the 2 deacons and the core members to discuss countermeasures. However, the core members of the Qi family were divided into 2 factions. After 4 hours of discussion, they still could not come to a consensus. Qi Huanji was extremely worried. He insisted on leaving the Mystic Light Island and going to the Black Mermaid tribe alone to save the kid. The 2 deacons of the Qi family held him back and tried their best to persuade him to stay. Up until now, our spies have not sent back any news. I think the Qi family is still observing and considering. They have not made a decision yet." After hearing this news, Yuan Qingkong's eyes flashed with disdain. "Humph. Qi Tianlong is still a character, but his son, Qi Huanji, is a complete piece of trash. Such an impulsive and stupid person will soon ruin the Qi family's 1,000 years of foundation." Yan Zong reminded him, although Qi Huanji is a good-for-nothing, he trusts and relies on the Qi family's consecrator. He sees him as an elder brother. If he insists, the Qi family's deacons and core members will not be able to stop him. You still have to be on guard. You can't let your guard down. Yuan Chenkong nodded and said, "Of course I understand. If the person in charge is Qi Tianlong, I am not worried. At least he will not act recklessly. But Qi Huangji, that brat, was shallow and domineering. Most likely, he would act on impulse. If he really brings the priceless resources and treasures to the Black Mermaid tribe to ransom them." Yuan Chenkong paused for a moment. Soon after, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He ordered, "Yen Zong, other than the remaining 80% of the resources, prepare another 200 million divine stones and 20,000 sets of heavenly god equipment. In addition, bring along the 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl. This seat will set off early tomorrow morning." Yen Zong was stunned on the spot. After a moment of silence, he asked in a low voice, "City Lord, the 200 million god stones and 20,000 sets of heavenly god equipment are already worth 5 billion. Even though we've taken control of the profound light cave over the years and accumulated over 100 billion in wealth, it's still not enough. However, we have already given away 10 billion worth of resources, which is already a huge loss. The Black Mackerel tribe should be satisfied. You still want to bring that 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl? There was no need for that, right? That treasure is priceless. When you break through to the 7th level Divine Lord realm in the future, you will definitely be able to use it. It will definitely be of great help." Yuan Chenkong nodded with a complicated expression. Of course, this seat knows. Even 10 billion divine stones cannot be exchanged for that 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl. However, this seat has already studied it for over 100 years and still could not refine that dragon pearl. Breaking through to the 7th level Divine Lord realm and becoming an upper Divine Lord is still far away. This seat cannot wait that long. I must kill the Qi family's consecrator first and avenge my son. Moreover, bringing that 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl is just a precaution." Yen Zong did not say anything else. After bowing, his figure disappeared into the darkness. Early morning. In the depths of the Sunset Ocean region, the Black Mackerel tribe's territory. A blazing sun leaped out of the ocean and rose slowly. The vast ocean sparkled and the morning breeze blew gently. An island with a radius of 500 miles stood quietly on the ocean surface, solemn and dignified. This vast island was surrounded by reef. The island was filled with primitive forests, mountains, valleys, and rivers. Countless birds and beasts lived there. This was the famous Black Mermaid Island. When gods from all over saw the Black Mermaid Island, it meant that they had stepped into the Black Mermaid tribe's territory. Although there were over a dozen black stone palaces and a wide plaza on the Black Mermaid Island, this was only the Black Mermaid tribe's territory. It was a place where the Black Mermaid tribe interacted with the outside world. Normally, the Black Mermaid tribe lived in the deep sea and was used to moving around in the dark and cold sea. Yesterday, Ji Tianxing followed the Black Mermaid King back here. The Black Mermaid King brought him to the bottom of the sea to visit the real Black Mermaid tribe. It was a deep valley close to the trench. It was filled with jagged rock layers, colorful corals, and aquatic plants. The Black Mermaid tribe's people built thousands of houses and caves in the deep valley for living and cultivation. Their residences were decorated with large amounts of pearls, gems, and metals. They sparkled in the dark sea and were very colorful. Moreover, the Black Mermaid tribe's architectural style was very rough and had a strong foreign style. It had a unique charm. The Black Mermaid King invited Ji Tianxing to stay in his palace and wait for Yuan Chenkong to come for the transaction. However, Ji Tianxing rejected. The reason was that the location of the transaction could not be in the Black Mermaid tribe. This was to prevent accidents and war from affecting the innocent people of the Black Mermaid tribe. The Black Mermaid King agreed and expressed his gratitude. The location of the negotiation and transaction was naturally on the Black Mermaid Island. At this moment, in the center of the Black Mermaid Island, in the most majestic and dignified Mermaid King Palace, Ji Tianqing stood at the entrance of the palace with the Black Mermaid King beside him. Two gods in tattered clothes and covered in wounds were kneeling on the wide and flat stone steps, kowtowing to Ji Tianqing to express their gratitude. One of the gods was an ordinary-looking woman from the Raging Flame tribe with a muscular body. The other god race youth was a tall and ordinary-looking man from the God Yi tribe in white robes. This man from the God Yi tribe did not have a right hand. His right wrist was bare. After the two of them kowtowed 3 times, they said respectfully, "Thank you, Lord Tianqing, for saving us. We are eternally grateful. We will never forget Lord Tianqing's great kindness." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and raised his hand, indicating that the two of them could rise and dispense with the formalities. He looked at the white-robed man and asked, "Although I pleaded for you and asked the Black Mermaid King to let you go, I want your right hand. But I want your right palm. You won't resent me, will you?" The white-robed man hurriedly bowed and said, "Lord Tianqing's words make me fearful. Compared to gaining freedom, what is a hand? It will grow back after recuperating for a few years. Take this right hand as an apology to the Black Mermaid King. After all, we barged into the Black Mermaid tribe's territory and were in the wrong first." End of chapter. Chapter 2877. Under the watchful eyes of Ji Tianqing and the Black Mermaid King, the two gods bid farewell and left. Looking at their departing backs, the Black Mermaid King frowned and muttered softly, "Young Master Tianqing, you're letting them go just like that? What if they meet you in Chenkong on their way back? Won't our plan be exposed?" Although the Black Mermaid King was defeated by Ji Tianqing and had surrendered in humiliation, Ji Tianqing did not deliberately humiliate him or make things difficult for him. Therefore, the Black Mermaid King chose to forget the humiliation and acted as if nothing had happened. He followed Ji Tianqing closely and maintained a respectful attitude, following Ji Tianqing's lead. In terms of scheming, methods, and strength, he was not Ji Tianqing's opponent. Only by obediently following orders could he preserve his life and dignity. If he performed well enough, he could even gain some benefits. Why not do it? Therefore, he was very humble now and almost treated himself as Ji Tianqing's subordinate. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and smiled. "Don't worry, those two gods are from the Raging Flame Divine Nation. They will head southwest and will not meet you in Chenkong. Moreover, I have already reminded them. Even if there is a 1 in 1,000 chance, they will know what to say if they meet you in Chenkong." The Black Mermaid King was relieved and nodded. "That's good. You have considered everything." After saying that, he extended his hand and made an inviting gesture. He smiled and said, "Young Master Tianqing, please return to the palace to rest. I have already arranged for good wine and delicacies, and the 2 most beautiful girls of my race to serve you. No matter which space-time it was, no matter which race it was, beauties and good wine were very attractive." The Black Mermaid King thought of ways to please Ji Tianqing. He only wanted to settle this matter as soon as possible and send this terrifying fellow away. However, Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and looked to the side. His lips curled into a cold smile. The beauty standards of the Black Mermaid race are truly unflattering. The Black Mermaid King's voice stopped abruptly. He looked at him awkwardly and asked guiltily, "Young Master Tianqing, is there a problem?" Ji Tianqing sneered, "You said that the white-robed young Protoss looked like me?" The Black Mermaid King was stunned for a moment before he nodded in confusion. "Yes, what's wrong?" Ji Tianqing was getting angrier and angrier. He said bitterly, "Apart from our height and clothes, which part of me is similar to that white-robed young man? I am handsome and valiant, my face is so handsome, my eyes are as bright as the stars, my temperament is as deep as the sea, mysterious and unfathomable. On the other hand, That fellow had an ordinary appearance and a mediocre temperament. He didn't have the demeanor of an expert at all. Tell me, how does he resemble me? The Black Mermaid King was a little confused. He blinked his 4 little eyes and thought for a while before giving a reasonable explanation. I see that you're all humans, and your appearances are similar. They all had 1 head, 2 legs, 2 arms, and 1 mouth. They didn't have wings, tails, or anything like that. Aren't they the same? Ji Tianqing rolled his eyes helplessly. Forget it, I can't get through to you. Pretend that I didn't say anything. Luckily, I was attentive enough to refine that fellow's right palm and left my aura. Otherwise, Yuan Chenkong might not have believed me. The Black Mermaid King quickly nodded and said, Young Master Tianqing, don't worry. Yuan Chenkong hates you to the core. When he sees those 3 items, he will definitely take the bait. Let's wait patiently in the palace. He will be here very soon. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, Don't waste time. Go and mobilize the experts under your command and finish setting up the defenses as soon as possible. I still need to set up some measures just in case. The Black Mermaid King had no choice but to give up on the idea of resting. He nodded and said, All right, then let's do our jobs and work together to take down Yuan Chenkong. After that, the 2 of them went their separate ways. The Black Mermaid King led the guardians and priests to deploy the troops and set up the defenses on the Black Mermaid Island. Ji Tianqing acted alone and buried many spies on the Black Mermaid Island. They would be effective at the crucial moment. Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. The afternoon sun was scorching hot, and the sea around the Black Mermaid Island was very calm. The close to 100 Black Mermaid warriors on the island were all tired and sleepy. After all, they were more used to staying at the dark and cold bottom of the sea. It was very uncomfortable to be exposed to the sun on land. At this moment, a Black Mermaid expert blew the conch horn and shouted, Someone is coming from 10,000 miles to the south. The loud voice spread across half of the island. Instantly, the hundreds of Black Mackerel warriors were energized and became energetic. In the palace, in the main hall, Ji Tianqing, the Black Mermaid King, and the rest who were resting with their eyes closed also opened their eyes. The Black Mermaid King smiled and said, It should be Yuan Chenkong. Young Master Tianqing, please hide for a while. Let me handle this. Ji Tianqing nodded and turned to walk into the secret room in the corner of the main hall. Soon, he was in a sorry state with tattered clothes and bloodstains all over his body. His hair was disheveled and his breathing was weak. His limbs were tied up by the 10,000-year-cold iron chains, and he looked like he was unconscious. In the main hall, the Black Mermaid King sat on the throne that was studded with gems. The guardians and priests stood on the left and right sides, and there were 6 elite experts at the bottom of the stairs. Not long later, the voice of a guard came from outside the main hall. My king, the Qingshan city lord is here to visit my king. He requests to enter the island. The Black Mermaid King grinned and revealed a mocking sneer. He said in a dignified tone, Bring him to see me. The guard outside the main hall acknowledged the order and turned to leave. Another 100 breaths passed. A team of more than 100 people passed through the square and arrived outside the palace. The leader of the team was Yuan Chenkong, who wore a purple robe and a jade crown. Beside him was an expert in a gray robe and a large cloak. His face could not be seen clearly. This person was skinny and a little stooped. His breathing was obscure, and he did not attract any attention. He was Yuan Chenkong's shadow supervisor, Yen Zong. Other than these 2 Sir God experts, the remaining 100 heaven gods were all wearing silver armor and carrying swords and sabers. Obviously, they were the elite guards of the city lord's mansion. The 100 guards stayed outside the main hall with their hands on the hilts of their sabers and swords. They guarded both sides of the main door and the main road. Yuan Chenkong led the expert in a gray robe and walked up the stairs into the main hall. Yuan Chenkong stood in the middle of the spacious hall and greeted the Black Mermaid King with a loud voice. "Black Mermaid King, how have you been?" There wasn't the slightest difference in his expression and tone. He was as dignified and decisive as ever. The Black Mermaid King looked at him with a smile and nodded. "Old thief Yuan, after so many years, you have indeed aged. All right, I shall not waste any more time with you. Let's talk business. Have you brought the other 80% of the resources?" Chapter 2878. The Black Mermaid King and Yuan Qingkong didn't have any friendship. Both of them were just cooperating for mutual benefit. The Black Mermaid King had always been arrogant and didn't bother to exchange pleasantries with him. He pretended to be friendly. The moment they met, he went straight to the point and asked for money. Yuan Qingkong squinted his eyes and stroked the black thumb ring on his left thumb. He smiled and said, "Of course I have brought the things you want. They are all here." As he spoke, he cast a secret magic to show the contents of the thumb ring to Nye Tian and Nye Tian in the form of divine light. Swoosh! A light screen with a radius of 100 feet appeared in the air of the hall. On the 5-colored light screen, there were piles of pearls and divine stones, as well as neatly arranged armors and divine weapons. The Black Mermaid King, the priest, the protector, and the 6 Black Mermaid experts all stared at the light screen. Seeing the pearls, divine stones, and divine weapons, everyone's eyes lit up and their breathing quickened. Yuan Qingkong waved his hand and kept the light screen. He said proudly, "Black Mermaid King, there are 24,000 pearls, 240 million divine stones, and 24,000 sets of divine weapons and equipment here. I have prepared the items. Now you have to hand over the Qi family's offerings for me to verify. If there are no problems, let's have a pleasant cooperation. 1 for 1, 1 for the goods." The Black Mermaid King leaned on his throne and sneered. Logically speaking, this is how the transaction should go. However, the situation is different now. After the Qi family received the news, they are willing to pay double the price to redeem the Qi family's offerings. Tell me, if this king misses this opportunity to make a fortune, wouldn't he be blamed by the people? Kiki. Yuan Qingkong had expected that the Black Mermaid King wouldn't hand over the Qi family's offerings so easily and was mentally prepared. However, when the Black Mermaid King said those words, his shameless face made Yuan Qingkong clench his fists secretly. He wished he could punch the Black Mermaid King to death. However, Yuan Qingkong suppressed his anger and remained calm. He shook his head and sneered. "To be honest, I passed by the Mystic Light Island on my way here and asked about the Qi family's situation. Those useless people from the Qi family are still discussing and arguing. They can't come to a decision. Black Mermaid King, don't expect the Qi clan to pay the ransom. The young master of the Qi clan is a hedonistic son of the Qi clan. He can't make a decision. You are destined to be happy for nothing. Therefore, I advise you to abide by the agreement and hand over the Qi family's offerings and take the benefits that belong to you." Seeing how confident Yuan Qingkong was, the Black Mermaid King laughed even more mockingly. "Old thief Yuan, you should know the Qi family's young master better than I do. He was a good-for-nothing, so he didn't care about the Qi family's wealth and foundation at all. He is unswervingly loyal to the Qi family, and for the sake of brotherhood, he has already agreed to this king's conditions." After saying that, the Black Mermaid King shouted to the outside of the main hall, "Men, bring the Qi clan's envoy into the main hall." The guards outside the hall acknowledged the order. Yuan Qingkong frowned and his expression changed. Messengers from the Qi family? He subconsciously turned his head to look at the entrance of the hall and saw a silver-haired young man in a white robe walking into the hall. The silver-haired youth glared at Yuan Qingkong as he walked past him. Then, the silver-haired youth stood in the middle of the main hall and cupped his fists at the Black Mermaid King. "Messengers from the Qi family, Bai Long greets the Black Mermaid King." At the same time, Yan Zong transmitted a message to Yuan Qingkong. "City Lord, this young man is called Bai Long, and he is the disciple of the Qi family's offerings. He has already become Qi Huangji's trusted aide. Yuan Chenkong nodded silently, indicating that he understood. At this time, Bai Long said to the Black Mermaid King, "Black Mermaid King, the young master and my master are as close as brothers. Now that my master is in trouble, the young master can't eat or sleep in peace. Whatever price Yuan Chenkong offered, the young master is willing to pay double. 60,000 sets of heavenly god equipment, 60,000 pearls, and 600 million divine stones. The Qi family can afford it. Here is half of the deposit. As long as the Black Mermaid King is willing to release the Qi family, we will quickly give you the other half." After saying that, Bai Long took out a pitch-black interspatial ring and presented it to the Black Mermaid King. The priest quickly took the ring and used his divine sense to check the number of items in it with a serious expression. After a while, he nodded to the Black Mermaid King and kept the interspatial ring. The Black Mermaid King was very satisfied. He smiled and nodded. "Very good. Envoy from the Qi family, you are very sincere. I will accept the deposit." Then, he looked at Yuan Chenkong and sneered. "All right, old thief Yuan, there is nothing for you to do here. You are so insincere. I look down on you. Send the guest out." The Black Mermaid King did not give Yuan Chenkong any chance to bargain. He immediately asked him to leave. Yuan Chenkong's expression changed drastically. He was shocked and humiliated. He stared at Bai Long and thought to himself, "Qi Huangji, that trash. How is this possible?" Bai Long also stared at him with a cold smile. His eyes were filled with killing intent and contempt. Yuan Chenkong was the city lord. When had he ever been humiliated like this? He shouted without hesitation, "Wait!" Yen Zong guessed what he was going to do. He quickly tried to dissuade him. "City Lord, calm down. We have not even seen the Qi family's offerings. Don't agree rashly. There might be a trap." However, Yuan Chenkong was anxious and angry. How could he listen to Yen Zong's advice? He looked at the Black Mermaid King and said sternly, "Black Mermaid King, the Qi family's offerings are mine. No one can take them away from me. You can't break our agreement. That is treachery. Not only will I give you 80% of the resources, but I will also give you 20,000 pearls, 200 million god stones, and 20,000 sets of heaven god equipment. Return the Qi family's deposit now and hand over the Qi family's offerings. I will give you the items immediately." As he spoke, Yuan Chenkong took off the thumb ring on his left hand and a space ring on his right hand. The Black Mermaid King hesitated. He looked at his thumb ring and space ring before looking at the black space ring that Bai Long offered. The guardian and priest also frowned. They looked like they were in a dilemma. The two of them exchanged glances with each other before they tried to persuade the Black Mermaid King. The Black Mermaid King quickly came up with an idea. He said solemnly, "Old thief Yuan, you have given me a difficult problem. If I agree to you now, I will immediately get 500 million god stones, 50,000 sets of equipment, and pearls. If I agree to the Qi family's terms, the Qi family will be able to gather the other 50% of the resources in 10 days to half a month. By then, I will get 600 million god stones, 60,000 sets of equipment, and pearls." After pondering for a while, the Black Mermaid King shook his head. "Yuan Chenkong, I cannot agree to this. For the sake of the Black Mermaid tribe, I would rather wait for another half a month to get more benefits." Hearing this, Bai Long revealed an expression of relief. He glanced at Yuan Chenkong proudly. Yuan Chenkong was enraged. He growled with a pale face, "Black Mermaid King, don't push your luck. Send the guest out." The Black Mermaid King ordered expressionlessly. Yuan Chenkong hesitated for a while before he finally made up his mind. "Wait, I still have a priceless treasure that you will definitely be interested in." End of chapter. Chapter 2879. Yuan Chenkong's cold voice caused the hall to tremble slightly. Yan Zong's old body trembled as well. Sigh. The city lord is too impatient. He has been forced to use his trump card so quickly. Although no one could see Yan Zong's expression, he sighed silently in his heart. Bai Long's expression changed abruptly. He was filled with fear and worry. As for the Black Merman King, the Guardian, and the priest, their eyes lit up. What treasure! The Black Merman King stared at Yuan Qingkong with his 4 bright eyes and said with a smile, "You old thief, you are indeed cunning. Since you have prepared the treasure, why didn't you take it out earlier?" Yuan Qingkong was so frustrated that he almost vomited blood. He wanted to smash the Black Merman King into meat paste. "If it weren't for your insatiable greed, would I be willing to take out the dragon pearl?" he roared in his heart. He was so angry that his liver hurt. However, since things had come to this, he could only grit his teeth and bear with it. Opening his interspatial ring, he took out a fist-sized, multicolored orb from within. Swoosh! The orb blossomed with dazzling light, illuminating the entire hall with a dazzling brilliance. Moreover, the pearl was emitting a mysterious energy wave. The consciousness of everyone in the hall was affected. Their expressions were a little excited, and they felt a little dizzy. Seeing that everyone was staring at the pearl in surprise, Yuan Qingkong introduced it. "This is a rare treasure that I have kept for 150 years, the 100-poison crocodile dragon pearl. It came from an upper divine lord ancient crocodile dragon. It has gathered hundreds of rare poisons, and has incredible power. Anyone who can become an upper divine lord will be able to refine this crocodile dragon pearl and obtain immeasurable power. Black Merman King, you should know the value of this pearl. Even if you have 10 billion god stones, you will not be able to buy this rare treasure." The Black Merman King nodded in agreement. He said excitedly, "That's right. Such a rare treasure cannot be measured by god stones. It is an insult to the ancient crocodile dragon." Yuan Qingkong felt much better. He said proudly, "If that is the case, I will part with this treasure and use this 100-poison crocodile dragon pearl to exchange for the Qi family's offerings. As for these pearls, godstones, and equipment, I'll take them back." After saying that, he was about to put away the thumb ring and the jade ring. The Black Mermaid King grinned and said, "No. Leave the 100-poison crocodile dragon pearl behind. I also want those divine stones, equipment, and pearls." "You!" Yuan Qingkong's heart, which had just relaxed, instantly tightened. His face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. His vision darkened, and the blood in his body flowed in reverse. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Black Mermaid King, how can you be so shameless?" The Black Mermaid King was not ashamed at all. He even sneered proudly, "Kakik, don't you know that you shouldn't show off your wealth? Since I've seen it, how can I let it go? If it were you, wouldn't you be tempted?" Yuan Qingkong's face stiffened. He was stunned. It seemed to make sense. Without waiting for him to speak, the Black Shark King clapped his hands and said, "All right, it's settled then." He casually picked up the black ring and threw it in front of Bai Long. He said in a deep voice, "Envoy of the Qi family, take your deposit. I don't care about it anymore." "This." Bai Long picked up the interspatial ring and stood rooted to the ground anxiously. "Send the guest off." The Black Mermaid King waved his hand mercilessly. 2 Black Mermaid experts immediately rushed to Bai Long's side and carried him out of the main hall. Seeing this, Yuan Qingkong finally heaved a sigh of relief. "Black Mermaid King, since we've reached an agreement, it's time for you to hand him over." The Black Mermaid King did not waste any time and ordered the Protector, "Bring that kid out." The Protector quickly turned around and went through a secret door at the corner of the main hall, entering a dark secret room. After a while, he personally carried Ji Tianqing back to the main hall. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's clothes were tattered, his hair was messy, his face was dirty, and his body was covered in blood. His injuries were extremely miserable. His limbs were tied up with 10,000 years old cold iron chains. His breathing was weak, and he was still unconscious. Yuan Qingkong stared at him without blinking. After seeing Bai Long's situation, the expression on his face gradually turned ferocious. His eyes were cold and filled with hatred. Ha 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 ha! Yuan Qingkong laughed and roared in a low voice, "Little bastard! You're finally in my hands. I've been waiting for this day for too long. If I don't cut you into pieces and grind your bones to dust, how can I vent my hatred?" At this moment, the anger, killing intent, and hatred that Yuan Qingkong had accumulated for a long time could finally be released. Although he had to pay 10 billion god stones and a priceless crocodile dragon pearl, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. However, if he could get Ji Tianqing, who was severely injured and unconscious, it was all worth it. "I'll leave him to you. Give me the items." The Black Mermaid Protector came in front of Yuan Qingkong and threw the unconscious Ji Tianqing to Yuan Qingkong. Yuan Qingkong was so excited that his eyes turned red. Without hesitation, he took out the black thumb ring, jade ring, and 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl and threw them all to the Black Mermaid Protector. Swoosh! The Black Mermaid Protector accepted the priceless crocodile dragon pearl, thumb ring, and ring with a strange smile in his eyes. At the same time, Yuan Qingkong reached out and grabbed Ji Tianqing. With his left hand holding Ji Tianqing, he impatiently extended 2 fingers and was about to gouge out Ji Tianqing's eyes. Now that he had gotten hold of his enemy, he would gouge out 2 eyeballs to vent his anger before slowly torturing and killing him. However, the Black Mermaid King suddenly roared, "Stop! You an old bastard, if you want to torture him, get out of here! Don't let my palace be stained with blood." Yuan Qingkong was stunned. He did not have time to figure out what was wrong. He retracted his right hand and said in a low voice, "Black Mermaid King, I'll take my leave now. You've tricked me this time. Don't fall into my hands in the future." After that, Yuan Qingkong brought Yen Zong and flew out of the main hall. At this moment, he only wanted to leave Black Mermaid Island as soon as possible and find a place to torture Ji Tianqing. Looking at his departing figure, the Black Mermaid King sneered mockingly. "Fall into your hands? Ha ha! You won't have the chance in this lifetime." Unfortunately, Yuan Qingkong was in a hurry to leave. His mind was filled with thoughts of how to torture and kill Ji Tianqing. He did not hear the Black Mermaid King's sneer at all. After a short 10 breath, Yuan Qingkong carried Ji Tianqing and flew more than 200 miles away. He was about to leave Black Mermaid Island. Yen Zong and hundreds of guards followed closely behind. For some reason, Yen Zong had a bad premonition, and it was getting stronger and stronger. He subconsciously looked at Ji Tianqing and stared at his right arm under the white sleeve. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong and his pupils constricted. Right at this moment, Ji Tianqing, who had been unconscious, suddenly opened his eyes. He instantly unleashed an earth-shattering divine aura and transformed into a 5-colored giant sword, ruthlessly slashing toward Yuan Qingkong. Boom! An earth-shattering boom suddenly exploded in the sky, shaking everything within 3,000 miles. Chapter 2880. A colorful mushroom cloud rose into the sky above the Black Shark Island. A dazzling sword light pierced through the air, releasing a godly aura that could tear the heavens and earth apart. A large rain of blood splashed out, sprinkling down from the sky. Yuan Qingkong let out a shrill cry as he was sent flying like a cannonball. He drew an arc in the sky and flew for over 100 miles before crashing onto the edge of the island. A small mountain of black reefs was smashed into pieces by him, splashing debris all over the sky. A deep pit with a radius of thousands of feet appeared on the ground. The ground shook violently. Yen Zong and the hundreds of city lords' mansion guards were dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. No one expected that Ji Tianqing, who was in a coma, would attack Yuan Qingkong. His breath was weak, His body was covered in blood, his injuries were terrible, and his limbs were chained up. How could he suddenly wake up? How could he unleash such a terrifying power and injure Yuan Chenkong with one strike? That was too strange. No, there must be a trap. This must be a conspiracy. Yen Zong was the first to regain his senses. He immediately turned into a gray shadow and dashed toward the deep pit at the edge of the island. The leader of the guards also seemed to have woken up from a dream. He shouted, "Quick! Protect the city governor!" As he shouted, he led nearly 100 guards and charged towards Yuan Chenkong at the fastest speed possible. Everyone understood without Yen Zong's explanation. This was a conspiracy. The most important thing now was to get the city governor out of the Black Shark Island. Swoosh! Yen Zong dashed into the deep pit and saw Yuan Chenkong lying at the bottom. His purple robe was in tatters, and there was a large bloody hole in his chest. His ribs could be seen clearly. Blood was gushing out of the wound, and there were also pieces of his organs. The heart-wrenching pain made him tremble. His face was distorted. "Ah! I'm going to kill you! I'm going to tear you into pieces!" Yuan Chenkong was furious. He roared in a hoarse voice. Yen Zong hurriedly waved his hand and shot out a ray of divine light to help him suppress his injuries. "City Lord, this is the scheme of the Black Mermaid King and the Qi clan. We have to escape as soon as possible and plan our next move," Yen Zong urged anxiously as he supported Yuan Chenkong and flew into the sky. However, just as the two of them flew out of the deep pit and into the sky, he discovered that the entire Black Shark Island was sealed by a formation with a radius of 500 miles. The five-colored wall of light that covered the sky was like a heavenly canopy, releasing an invisible suppressive force. Inside the light wall, the light of ice and fire surged, and the four-colored lightning roamed around like divine dragons. There were even over 10,000 enormous five-colored swords floating in the sky in the surroundings, and they contained a few tens of divine Tao laws. Under the pressure of the divine might, the guards of the city lord mansion were all trembling in fear. The divine powers in their bodies became chaotic, and their combat prowess was greatly weakened. Even Yuan Chenkong, who was heavily injured, started to feel his blood boil, and his divine power was unable to circulate smoothly. "Since you're here, don't even think about leaving." A cold laugh came from the sky. Yen Zong and Yuan Chenkong looked up and saw Ji Tianqing, who was dressed in a white robe, looking down at them with a cold smile. What was even more hateful was that Ji Tianqing had changed his clothes. His robe was as white as snow, and his long hair was clean and elegant. The injuries and bloodstains on his body had all disappeared, and he looked handsome and valiant. How was he in a sorry state at all? Yuan Chenkong instantly understood that Ji Tianqing had been faking it earlier. He was acting, and he had even fooled him. "You bastard!" In his fury, Yuan Chenkong cursed with grief and indignation. He was very regretful. He had been too agitated earlier, and his desire for revenge was too strong, so he had neglected the details. If he had been calmer and more vigilant, he would have been able to see the clues and flaws. However, no matter how much he regretted it now, it was useless. At the same time, the Black Shark King also flew out of the palace and into the sky with the guardian and high priest. The three of them looked at Yuan Chenkong with undisguised disdain on their faces. "Old thief Yuan, I really don't know if water has entered your brain or if you have eaten a dragon's heart and phoenix's guts. You have been defeated by young Master Tianqing again and again. Why don't you know how to restrain yourself? Instead, you are getting crazier. Aren't you digging your own grave?" The Black Shark King shook his head and sighed, as if he was bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind. Yuan Chenkong was so angry that he vomited blood. He glared at him with bloodshot eyes and shouted, "Black Shark King! You actually cooperated with this bastard to plot against me? Why, he is just a nameless consecrator. I am a noble conferred by the god nation, the lord of Qingshan City. There are endless benefits to cooperating with me. However, you cooperated with him. Aren't you digging your own grave? Yuan Qingkong could not understand. He was filled with grief and indignation. The Black Shark King chuckled and said, "Old thief Yuan, you think too highly of your position as the lord of Qingshan City. I am also the leader of a tribe. Do you think I am arrogant?" After pausing for a while, he continued, "Moreover, my tribe has always believed that the strong are respected. In terms of strength and methods, young Master Tianqing is far superior to you and me. I almost lost my life when I cooperated with you. Cooperating with young Master Tianqing is the wise choice. You are now severely injured and unable to escape. This is the best proof." Yuan Qingkong instantly understood. Previously, when the Black Shark King led a large group of experts to attack Ji Tianqing outside Mystic Light Island, they were defeated miserably. Ji Tianqing won, but he did not kill the Black Shark King, the priest, and the protector. Therefore, the Black Shark King submitted to him and cooperated with him to set up a trap. Yuan Qingkong was filled with shock. He shook his head in disbelief. "This is impossible. At that time, you had 3 Sir Gods, a few hundred Black Shark warriors, and more than 100 elite experts. With such a powerful force, even 2 mid-level Sir Gods could be easily killed. Unless you did not bring so many people and did not use your full strength. But this should not be the case. Before that, you did not have any relationship with the Qi family." Yuan Qingkong could not understand. He could not accept the fact that Ji Tianqing defeated a few hundred people alone. The Black Shark King sneered. "Yuan Qingkong, you are so muddle-headed that you can't even take your opponent seriously. No wonder you were defeated. Young Master Tianqing's strength and methods are unfathomable. How can you imagine?" Yuan Qingkong was even more furious. Blood flowed out of his mouth as he roared, "Bullsh *T. He is just a lowly consecrator. How can he?" Before Yuan Qingkong could finish, Ji Tianqing shouted coldly, "Yuan Qingkong, you talk too much nonsense. Accept your death obediently. Other than dying here, you have no other choice." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing controlled the sword formation with his mind and sped it up. Tens of thousands of giant swords were also ready to attack, locking onto Yuan Qingkong and Yan Zong. Yuan Qingkong was filled with killing intent. He gritted his teeth and took out 2 dark gold-heavy swords while enduring his injuries. The only thing he could do now was fight to the death. Only then would he have a chance to escape. At this moment, Yan Zong, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Chapter 2881. Black Merman King, you better think carefully. The city lord of Yuan City is a noble of the divine nation and is protected by the divine nation. If he dies on Black Merman Island today, the Black Merman tribe will have to bear the wrath and revenge of the divine nation. By then, the divine nation will send an army to annihilate the entire Black Merman tribe. Don't make a mistake. Don't ruin the entire Black Merman tribe just because of the Qi family." Yan Zong's tone was cold as he shouted coldly, "If you stop now, the Black Merman tribe will not interfere in this battle. Qingshan City will remember this favor and will repay it in the future." With that, the atmosphere in the sky became strange. Yuan Qingkong, Yan Zong, and the City Lord Mansion's guards all looked at the Black Merman King, waiting for him to make a decision. The guardian and priest's expression changed slightly as they hesitated. The Black Merman King also frowned and hesitated. Indeed, he was afraid of Ji Tianqing's strength and methods. He could only submit and cooperate with Ji Tianqing's plan. However, he was more worried that after killing Yuan Qingkong, the Bloodfire Divine Nation would take revenge. By then, the Black Merman tribe would either be annihilated by the Divine Nation's army, or they would migrate away from this sea region and escape to the depths of the Sunset Sea region. However, a few hundred years ago, the Black Merman tribe's territory was in the depths of the Sunset Sea region. They were too weak and were almost annihilated by the other sea tribes. That was why they were forced to escape here. If they escaped back, the Black Merman tribe would soon be swallowed by the stronger sea tribes. Thinking of this, the Black Merman king was even more worried. If the Black Merman tribe did not interfere, they would not offend the Bloodfire divine nation. Not only would he be able to swallow the 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl, a few 100 million divine stones, and many other resources, but he would also receive Yuan Chenkong's gift of gratitude. How could he not be tempted by such astronomical wealth? Thinking of this, the Black Merman king's determination started to waver. Seeing the Black Merman king hesitate, Yuan Chenkong and Yen Zong saw hope and were filled with anticipation. As long as the Black Merman tribe did not interfere, they were confident that they could escape from Black Merman Island with just Ji Tianqing alone. Furthermore, they might even be able to turn the tables and kill Ji Tianqing. At this moment, Ji Tianqing glanced at the Black Mermaid King indifferently and said, "Black Mermaid King, this is a grudge between me and the City Lord Manor. You don't have to interfere. I don't want to bring disaster to the Black Mermaids because of this. Take your subordinates and retreat from my sword formation." Hearing this, Yuan Chenkong, Yen Zong, and the guards of the City Lord's mansion were all overjoyed. They sneered inwardly. "Ha ha! This arrogant and conceited fool is too stupid. Great! As long as the Black Mermaids don't interfere, he won't be able to do anything to us. We might even kill him instead." It seems that the Qi family's consecrator and the Black Mermaid race only have a relationship of interest. Once it's a matter of life and death, this pair of fake allies will collapse. The Black Mermaid race has always been cunning and greedy. Whoever works with the Black Mermaids will be in deep trouble. They will definitely be betrayed. These thoughts flashed through the minds of Yuan Chenkong and the others. Everyone was waiting for the Black Mermaid race to retreat so that they could attack Ji Tianqing. The Black Mermaid King was also surprised. He turned to look at Ji Tianqing and nodded apologetically. "Thank you, young Master Tianqing, for understanding my difficulties. I am very grateful. Although Yuan Chenkong is severely injured, they have the advantage in numbers. You have to be careful," he reminded Ji Tianqing. Then, he quickly left the Black Mermaid Island with the guardians, priests, and other Black Mermaid elite. There were more than 100 Black Mermaids standing in the sky outside the sword formation, observing the situation inside the formation. At this moment, Bai Long flew out from one of the palaces and came to Ji Tianqing's side. He glanced at the Black Mermaid King and the others outside the formation and sneered. These Black Mermaids are indeed unreliable. They are greedy, cunning, cowardly, and stupid. Things have already come to this stage, and he still dares to run away. What a stupid move. Do you think the Black Mermaid race will be fine if they don't join the battle? You are definitely going to be the scapegoat. Bai Long knew Ji Tianqing the best. However, Ji Tianqing's reaction was very calm. He was not angry at all. But Bai Long knew that his master was really angry. He was very disappointed in the Black Mermaid race. The Black Mermaid King's future was bleak. Yuan Chenkong took the opportunity to consume a divine pill to temporarily suppress his injuries. Looking at the empty sky with only Ji Tianqing and Bai Long left, he laughed proudly. "Ha ha ha ha! There are so many twists and turns. Finally, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Little bastard, the ally that you relied on abandoned you at the crucial moment. How is it? You didn't expect this, did you? Are you very angry? Are you very desperate? This is the reality. I am a nobleman bestowed by the god nation. You are nothing. The Black Mermaid King broke the agreement and betrayed me. Of course, he will betray you too. Now, what right do you have to be arrogant?" Yuan Chenkong glared at Ji Tianqing viciously. He was as proud as he could be. Bai Long rolled his eyes at him and said with disdain, "Idiot!" Yuan Chenkong was furious. He cursed, "Little bastard, it is useless even if you kneel down and beg for mercy. I will crush your bones and scatter your ashes. You will die in a worse way than your master. Bai Long asked with a smile, How can a person like you become a city lord? May I ask, are you the illegitimate son of Princess Tianfeng? Or did you sell your ass to her? Yuan Qingkong was so angry that he was about to explode. He could no longer hold back his murderous aura. He held 2 heavy swords and charged towards Bai Long. Damn insects, I will kill all of you. When Yuan Qingkong attacked, Yan Zong and the hundreds of city governor's guards also attacked without hesitation. Everyone unleashed their strongest power and used their ultimate killing move. Hundreds of divine powers and secret arts shone with dazzling divine light. They turned into sword shadows that covered the sky and rained down on Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon. Swoosh! 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 Instantly, Black Shark Island was enveloped by the divine skill shadows. It was chaotic and blurry within the sword formation. Nothing could be seen clearly. Ji Tianqing also activated the heaven-destroying sword formation and unleashed its strongest power to kill Yuan Qingkong and the others. Swoosh! 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 Tens of thousands of 5-colored giant swords carried dozens of divine Tao laws. They shattered the divine skill shadows and drowned everyone. Bam! 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 Deafening sounds of collisions and explosions rang out within the sword formation and shook the 9 heavens. The loud noises spread for thousands of miles. The destructive shock wave wantonly shook Black Shark Island, causing the entire island to shake violently. The mountains and forests on the island were quickly reduced to ruins. Smoke and dust filled the sky. The dozen or so black stone palaces were also destroyed and collapsed one after another. Then, 2 more figures appeared out of thin air amidst the chaotic and violent 5-colored divine light. They were 2 beautiful women. One was wearing a red dress and holding a divine spear. The other was wearing a white dress and holding a divine sword. The 2 of them fought side by side with Ji Tianqing and Bai Long. They quickly killed the city governor's guards. Chapter 2882. This battle was exceptionally intense. It lasted for a full 15 minutes before it finally came to an end. Although the difference in numbers between the 2 sides was huge. 4 people against 102 people, it was like throwing an egg against a rock. There was no chance of winning. At least, that was what Yuan Qingkong and the others thought. But the final result was beyond everyone's expectations. Ji Tianqing and the other 3 had won a complete victory. The close to 100 guards of the city lord's mansion were all killed. All of them were smashed to pieces, and their godheads were also shattered. Of course, Bai Long, Ji Ku, and Yun Yao contributed to this. But most importantly, it was the invincible power of the heaven-destroying sword formation. Under the suppression of the sword formation, the guards' movements were sluggish, and their combat strength was greatly reduced. Tens of thousands of giant swords shuttled back and forth, cutting them into pieces. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Bai Long, Yun Yao, and the others only assisted from the side. When they saw some guards who were lucky enough to survive, they went up and stabbed them twice with their spears, ending their lives. When the guards of the city lord's mansion were all dead, Yuan Qingkong and Yan Zong became generals without an army. Yan Zong was still fine. His strength was already at the 5th level of the Divine Lord realm, and he was in peak condition. He transformed into a dozen gray shadows and attacked Ji Tianqing and the others like ghosts. He executed all kinds of exquisite divine abilities and secret assassination techniques to perfection. Ji Tianqing even felt that Yan Zong's true strength was probably stronger than Yuan Qingkong's. So, he faced Yan Zong alone and fought him. Yan Zong used all his strength and attacked Ji Tianqing without holding back. But Ji Tianqing's divine power was more vigorous, and he had mastered more nomological powers and divine abilities. The 2 figures flickered between heaven and earth, teleporting left and right, dodging and attacking. It was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. Until 100 breaths later, Yen Zong had used all his trump cards. He felt like he had exhausted all his abilities, and the momentum of his attacks weakened. At this time, Ji Tianxing was still using all kinds of strange techniques, and his attacks became more and more powerful. So, he gradually gained the upper hand and suppressed Yen Zong, making it difficult for him to parry or dodge. As time passed, Yen Zong's divine power was quickly drained away. He started to bleed profusely, and his situation became more and more dangerous. At this time, Yuan Qinkong was in an extremely sorry state. Not only was his hair disheveled and his body covered in blood, there were also numerous wounds on his body. The bloody hole between his chest and abdomen could no longer suppress the injury, and blood continued to spurt out. Under such circumstances, he should immediately leave the battle and find a place to heal his injuries while preserving his divine body. However, White Dragon, Yun Yao, and Ji Ku were attacking him with all their might, making it impossible for him to escape. Although the three of them were only at the 4th to 6th level of the Heavenly God stage, their strength was still at the 4th level of the Heavenly God stage. However, they were extraordinarily talented. Their true battle prowess was comparable to an 8th or 9th level celestial god. As for Yuan Qinkong, although he had 5th level Divine Lord Realm strength, he had his strength suppressed by the Heaven Exterminating Sword formation, restricting his movements. At the same time, he was severely wounded. His divine body was on the verge of collapse. His fighting prowess was extremely weak. The four of them were locked in a fierce battle, and no one could do anything to the other. Yun Yao and Ji Ku were not in a hurry. They were happy to stall for time. However, Yuan Qinkong did not dare to waste any time. His heart was burning with anxiety as he attacked with all his might. However, it was useless. Yun Yao and Ji Ku's battle experience was not inferior to his. Naturally, they were entangled in a battle of attrition. How could they let him have his way? In the blink of an eye, another 100 breaths passed. Yuan Qinkong could feel that the vitality of his divine body was rapidly disappearing, and it was about to disintegrate. He was so anxious that he was about to go crazy. Damn bastards, you forced me to do this. Yuan Qinkong's eyes were bloodshot. His body was burning with crimson flames as he roared at the top of his lungs. In the battle just now, he had used many defensive divine artifacts and talismans. He had used up all his life-saving trump cards. He could only use his last divine artifact to save his life and escape. Swoosh! A crimson divine whip that was more than 10 feet long appeared in front of him. He activated the divine blood in his body and poured it into the divine whip. Boom! Suddenly, the crimson divine whip expanded to 100 feet long, burning with divine flames that soared into the sky. Terrifying waves of fire and high temperature spread in all directions, dispersing the divine light in the sky. This flaming divine whip was like a majestic fire dragon. Without a doubt, this was a middle-grade monarch divine artifact, a priceless treasure. Its grade was superb and its power was terrifying. Yuan Qinkong was confident that with this flaming divine whip, he could break through Ji Tianxing's sword array and escape from Black Shark Island. Unfortunately, every time he activated this divine whip, he had to consume a large amount of divine blood and essence. Yuan Qinkong's severely injured body immediately turned into a shriveled corpse. His appearance was hideous. Even if he could escape from Black Shark Island, he would suffer heavy losses. He would need to recuperate for at least a few decades to recover. However, in order to escape, he did not care about that. Swoosh! With a flash of light, Yuan Qinkong entered the flaming divine whip and flew toward the 5-colored light shield not far away. The 5-colored giant swords covered the sky and the earth, bombarding the flaming divine whip. Bam! 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 In the blink of an eye, the flaming divine whip was hit by dozens of swords, producing deafening sounds. However, the divine whip remained unscathed despite the flames flying everywhere. Under Yuan Chenkong's control, the flaming divine whip twisted its body like a fire dragon, avoiding the countless giant swords and flying toward the edge of the sword array. 50 miles, 40 miles, 30 miles. Suddenly Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and Bai Long caught up. The three of them shouted coldly and waved their divine spears and swords to intercept the flaming divine whip. "You are courting death." Yuan Chenkong's angry roar came from the flaming divine whip. At the same time, the flaming divine whip used divine dragon swings its tail. Divine flames shot up into the sky and swept toward the three of them. Bam! 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 A series of muffled sounds rang out. The three of them had their divine powers and secret techniques shattered. They were also hit by the flaming divine whip and flew backward while vomiting blood. There were no more obstacles in front of them. The flaming divine whip sped up. When it was 10 miles away from the five-colored light shield, the flaming divine whip straightened and stabbed forward like a flaming divine sword. Boom! A deafening sound rang out, shaking the heavens and the earth. A few cracks appeared on the five-colored light shield. It shook violently and flashed with divine light. The powerful rebounding force also sent the flaming divine whip flying back. After flying backward for 30 miles, Yuan Chenkong regained his composure and rushed toward the five-colored light shield again. He was confident that he could break through the light shield and escape from Black Shark Island. But at this moment, a white-robed figure suddenly appeared from the side. He held a pitch-black divine sword with both hands and slashed out a dazzling golden sword. World Slash! The 1,000-foot-long divine golden sword struck the flaming divine whip with a mysterious and terrifying power. Yuan Chenkong had no time to dodge. He didn't even see the person who attacked and the mysteries of the golden sword. In the next moment, the 1,000-foot-long flaming divine whip was sent flying and smashed into the ruins 100 miles away. The raging divine flames were extinguished. The flaming divine whip returned to its original state and fell into the ruins. Yuan Chenkong, who looked like a mummy, also fell to the ground and twitched in pain. Chapter 2883. World Slash. It was the most powerful attack formed by the mysterious and powerful power of the world. This was the first time Ji Tianxing had used it since he came to the divine realm. The effect was extraordinary. Yuan Chenkong's divine body lost its vitality on the spot. He was deader than dead. A gust of wind blew, and the shriveled corpse quickly turned into black ashes. Swoosh! A dark red diamond-shaped crystal flew out of the black ash. It was his godhead. Upon closer inspection, one would find that there were a few cracks on its surface. It was obviously injured. Yuan Chenkong's godhead was damaged, and his power was weakened. His godhead flew into the sky, and he could see the situation inside the sword formation clearly. The battle was about to end. Yenzong, who was the most powerful, had his divine body destroyed by Ji Tianxing. His godhead was also severely injured, and he was fleeing blindly in the sky. Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry to kill him. Instead, he fixed his gaze on Yuan Chenkong's godhead. Anyway, with the heaven-destroying sword formation sealing Black Shark Island, Yenzong's godhead would not be able to escape. Such a scene made Yuan Chenkong lose all hope. It was as if he had seen death approaching. He was filled with grief and anger. He shouted angrily, "Tianxing, do you really want to kill me? Don't forget, I am a viscount bestowed by the king, the hereditary Qinshan city lord. If you dare to kill me, you will be going against the king. Also, I am the nephew of Princess Tianfeng. Can you bear the wrath of Princess Tianfeng?" Princess Tianfeng was the lord of Tianfeng City. She was also one of the only 20 princesses in the divine nation. She had great power. Not only was he an earl, but he was also a high-level divine lord. This was Yuan Chenkong's biggest backer. As he neared death, Yuan Chenkong's last hope was his identity and backing. He only hoped that Ji Tianxing was not crazy and could still be rational enough to consider the consequences. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and sneered. No wonder you can be the lord of Qingshan City. You have such a backer. Yuan Qingkong immediately saw a glimmer of hope. He hurriedly said, Consecrator Tianqing, you can't go too far. You have to leave some leeway for yourself. As long as you let me and Yen Zong go, everything that happened before will be written off. I promise I won't do anything to you again. How about it? If it were someone else, they might have hesitated and considered Yuan Qingkong's conditions. After all, Ji Tianqing had long since offended the Blood Sword sect. If he offended Princess Tianfeng on top of that, he would be accused of assassinating a noble of the theocracy. Unless he escaped from the blood-flame divine country and became a fugitive. Unfortunately, Yuan Qingkong was facing Ji Tianqing, a person who hated being threatened, who was not afraid of being besieged, and who would not feel pity. Before you asked the Black Mermaid King to assassinate me, if you were this remorseful, I might have considered it. But now it's too late. Ji Tianqing said indifferently. Yuan Qingkong's godhead froze for a second, then he roared furiously, You lowly beast! Lowly worm! Aren't you afraid of retribution for being so cruel? If you force me into a corner, I will self-detonate and die with you. Indeed, self-detonation was the last line of defense for one's dignity. It was the last trump card to kill one's enemy. Yuan Qingkong was forced to self-detonate, and he was already at his wits' end. Hearing the word self-detonate, Yen Zong's godhead trembled. The Black Mermaid King, the priest, and the protector's expressions changed drastically, and fear appeared in their eyes. However, Ji Tianqing's expression did not change, and he sneered coldly, In my sword array, your life and death are in my hands. Even if you self-detonate, it's useless. If you don't believe me, you can try. His casual words contained unquestionable confidence and domineering aura. Yuan Qingkong was almost choked to death, and he roared furiously, Ha ha! I have never seen someone like you who is not afraid of death. Good. Since you don't want to give me a way out, then let's die together. The tone of his laughter was very arrogant, but behind it was the despair and desolation of a dead heart. Yuan Qingkong did not hesitate anymore, and he immediately self-detonated. The dark red godhead emitted a fiery light that soared into the sky. A destructive aura rapidly brewed in the godhead, repeatedly compressing and expanding. In 2 breaths' time, Yuan Qingkong's godhead would self-detonate. At that time, not only would the sword array be destroyed, but the entire Black Mermaid Island would also be destroyed. Even the sea within a radius of 10,000 miles would be destroyed. Instantly, countless people's hearts clenched. Yen Zong was extremely anxious, and he screamed at the top of his lungs, No! City Lord, stop! Outside the array, the Black Mermaid King, the Protector, and the priest's expressions changed drastically. The 3 of them panicked, and they flew away as fast as they could, ordering the Black Mermaid warriors to escape. It's over. My Black Mermaid Island is destroyed. Get out of the way. What are you waiting for? Run. There was only one thought in everyone's mind, and that was to escape. The further they ran, the better. However, only a few people were the exception. Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, Yun Yao, and Ji Ku were still standing above the ruins, and they had no intention of running away. Looking at Yuan Qingkong's godhead, Ji Tianqing said calmly, Your life is in my hands. You want to self-detonate? No way. As he spoke, he manipulated the power of the heaven-destroying sword array to suppress Yuan Qingkong. Instantly, the burning flames of the godhead were suppressed by 50%. It was even more difficult for Yuan Qingkong to self-detonate, and the time required to do so was doubled. He desperately resisted the pressure of the sword array, and he tried to self-detonate. However, Ji Tianqing took a step forward and teleported in front of him. Keep! Ji Tianqing shouted coldly. He suddenly stretched out his right hand and grabbed Yuan Qingkong's godhead. A pitch-black vortex appeared in his palm, and it instantly swallowed the godhead. Yuan Chenkong's godhead was in an inflated state, and it was extremely dangerous and could explode at any time. However, the energy contained in the godhead had to be compressed and inflated to the limit before it could explode with its strongest power. Unfortunately, Yuan Chenkong's godhead was mercilessly swallowed by the pitch-black vortex. The violent energy that he had spent so much effort to control was swallowed by the black vortex like a flood that had broken through a dam. The energy was quickly draining away, and it could not reach its peak. How could it explode? Naturally, Yuan Chenkong's self-detonation stopped abruptly. The godhead rolled violently in the vortex, and it shot out hundreds of five-colored rays of light, burning with divine flames. The heaven-mending orb crazily swallowed his energy. After purifying it, it transferred half of the energy to Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing's body lit up with five-colored divine light, and his aura rose rapidly. The surrounding sky also vibrated, and the force field became very unstable. Everyone knew that this was the sign of a rapid increase in power. Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and Bai Long all looked expectant. Yan Zong, who was not far away, was angry and fearful. His godhead was trembling. He did not know what was going on. However, he knew that Yuan Chenkong's self-detonation had been stopped. Moreover, if he fell into Ji Tianqing's hands, he would definitely die. A new month, please vote. Thank you. End of chapter. Chapter 2884. Yan Zong panicked. He knew that Yuan Chenkong was finished. Defeat Ji Tianqing and save Yuan Chenkong? This thought had once flashed through his mind. But he immediately rejected it. What a joke. He was already severely injured and on the verge of death. He only had a cracked godhead left. How could he fight Ji Tianqing? The most important thing now was to escape from this sword formation. After all, Ji Tianqing was glowing with divine light, and his aura was rising rapidly. He seemed to be dealing with Yuan Chenkong's godhead, or he seemed to be cultivating some secret technique to increase his strength quickly. In short, Ji Tianqing couldn't care less about him now. This was a great opportunity. Whoosh! Yan Zong's godhead flew across the sky and rushed toward the northwest corner of Black Shark Island. He had observed it before. The southern part of the sword formation was more powerful and defensive. The northern part was weaker. Especially the northwest corner, which was the weakest point of the formation. Success or failure depends on this. In the blink of an eye, Yan Zong's godhead flew to the northwest corner, and was only 10 miles away from the five-colored light barrier. At this moment, he controlled Yuan Chenkong's two golden swords with his divine telekinesis and attacked the five-colored light barrier with all his might. Kaboom! The two golden swords pierced the five-colored light barrier like shooting stars, creating a deafening sound. Even though the two golden swords were sent flying back and fell into the ruins, they were still in a daze. Two cracks appeared on the five-colored light barrier, and it trembled violently. The two cracks were only as thick as a strand of hair. Ordinary people couldn't pass through them. Yan Zong saw hope. His godhead ignited with crimson flames and turned into a crimson mist. Swoosh! The mist scattered into thousands of wisps and flew toward the two cracks. According to my estimation, these two cracks will heal in 3 breaths. 3 breaths is enough for me to escape from the sword formation. This thought flashed through Yan Zong's mind, and he was a little excited. Whoosh! Whoosh! Wisps of dark red mist passed through the two cracks and escaped from the heaven-destroying sword formation. In just 1 breath, hundreds of wisps of mist escaped from the sword formation. Yan Zong was overjoyed. He controlled the remaining 600 wisps of mist and sped them through the cracks. But at this moment, a mocking sneer suddenly came from behind him. The city lord is already dead. As a butler, how can you not be buried with him? It was Ji Tianqing's voice. Yan Zong felt as if he had been struck by lightning. After a moment of hesitation, he sped up without regard for anything else and entered the two cracks. However, Ji Tianqing sneered and pressed his hand down. The 2 cracks on the 5-colored light wall instantly healed. More than 100 strands of red mist were outside the formation, while more than 500 strands of red mist were inside the formation. There were also over 100 strands of red mist that were stuck in the 5-colored light barrier. Yenzong was dumbfounded on the spot. It's actually stuck? Caught between a rock and a hard place, it was extremely awkward. Ji Tianqing looked at the red mist with a smile and slowly extended his left hand. A pitch-black vortex appeared in his palm, emitting a terrifying devouring power. Shwa! The invisible devouring storm enveloped more than 600 streaks of red mist and devoured them in the blink of an eye. Yenzong was in extreme despair. He could only withdraw his divine ability and return to his original form. With a flash of red light, he turned back into a dark red godhead. However, the godhead's power was even weaker, and there were a few more cracks. Surrounded by the pitch-black vortex, the godhead struggled with all its might, trying to escape. However, the godhead's power leaked out crazily and was mercilessly devoured by the vortex. Not only could Yenzong not escape, but he also sank deeper and deeper. The more he struggled, the faster his power leaked out. However, if he did not struggle, he would be waiting for his death and be devoured by the vortex bit by bit. In short, he would die either way. At this moment, Yenzong suddenly understood. It turned out that Ji Tianqing had used this move to forcefully interrupt Yuan Chenkong's self-destruction. It was a heaven-defying and unbelievable divine ability. Thinking of this, Yenzong's consciousness became weaker and weaker. Soon, he fell into eternal darkness. On the sea 1,000 kilometers away from Black Shark Island, the Black Shark King, Guardian, and Priest were desperately flying high in the sky. Seeing that Yuan Chenkong was about to detonate his godhead, they did not care about anything else and fled together, trying to get as far away from Black Shark Island as possible. In just a few breaths' time, they had already run 1,000 kilometers away. As for the hundreds of Black Shark warriors, they had left them far behind and were desperately running for their lives. At this moment, the Black Shark King sensed that something was wrong. He suddenly stopped and shouted coldly, "Stop! Stop running!" The Guardian and Priest ran for another few dozen kilometers before stopping. They turned to look at the Black Shark King. The Black Shark King did not look at them. He had already turned around and stared at Black Shark Island. There's no need to run. Yuan Chenkong's self-destruction failed. The Black Shark King observed for a moment and concluded. The Guardian and Priest looked at each other and exclaimed in disbelief. Could it be that Yuan Chenkong was afraid of death and cancelled his self-destruction midway? That's not right. He was already in such a state. It was impossible for him to cancel it even if he wanted to. The Black Shark King used his divine senses to check the situation on the island and said, "No, Yuan Chenkong did not cancel his self-destruction. He was suppressed by that kid." "What? How is this possible?" The Guardian and Priest were even more shocked. Their mouths were wide open and their expressions were even more interesting. Yuan Chenkong is a 5th-level divine monarch. To be able to forcefully interrupt his self-destruction, it must be a high-level divine monarch. Could it be that kid is a high-level divine monarch? This is impossible. The two of them could not accept this result. The Black Shark King had the same thought. His eyes and expression were filled with shock. It's not just Yuan Chenkong. That housekeeper was also suppressed by that kid. When he said this, the Black Shark King's voice was trembling. Not only was he shocked, but he was also a little flustered. The Guardian and Priest's hearts were in turmoil again. It was as though they were petrified. After a long while, the two of them took in a breath of cold air and exclaimed in disbelief. "My king, you must have seen wrongly? Stopping Yuan Chenkong's self-destruction with one hand and suppressing the housekeeper with the other? That kid actually has such a terrifying technique? Who exactly is he? Even a 7th-level divine monarch would not be able to do that." Yes. He must be an 8th-level divine monarch. The Black Shark King kept silent and his gaze was complicated. After keeping silent for a while, he saw that the guardian and priest had not regained their senses. He then said, "It's no longer important what realm he is in. Anyway, if he wants to kill us and annihilate the Black Shark race, it will be as easy as flipping his palm. Previously, when we ran away, we had already angered him. He must be very disappointed in us. We have to think of a way to salvage the situation." Previously, Yen Zong had advised him not to interfere. He thought that if he did not participate in the battle, Yuan Chenkong would not die and he would not offend the blood-flame divine kingdom. Moreover, he could take the dragon crocodile pearl and resources worth 10 billion for himself. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, the situation in front of him was the complete opposite. The Black Shark King was really flustered. Chapter 2885. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, we can't avoid it. The Black Mermaid King was anxious, but he could only accept his fate. After all, the Black Mermaid tribe was here. He couldn't possibly abandon his 20,000 people and escape with the guardians and priests, right? It was not worth it for the 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl and the resources that were worth 10 billion. Therefore, after the Black Mermaid King calmed himself down, he brought everyone back to the Black Mermaid Island. Swoosh! Soon, everyone returned to the Black Mermaid Island. The battle had already ended. Ji Tianxing's sky vanquishing sword formation had also been removed. The Black Mermaid Island still existed, but it had become a wasteland. The mountains, forests, and palaces on the island had all been leveled. The ground was filled with deep pits and ravines, and small hills of earth and rocks could be seen everywhere. Ji Tianxing was standing in the sky with his palms clasped together and his eyes closed as he circulated his energy. His body was still shining with rainbow divine light and emitting powerful divine power waves. The white dragon was not idle either. He was cleaning up the battlefield. He searched the entire Black Mermaid Island and found a few interspatial rings, a few monarch-grade divine artifacts, and many fragments of godheads. As for Yun Yao and Ji Ku, they had already returned to the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower to cultivate in seclusion. Their current strength was much weaker than Ji Tianxing's. If they followed Ji Tianxing outside, they would definitely be delayed. Therefore, they focused on cultivating and increasing their strength as soon as possible. They would only show themselves at crucial moments. Ji Tianxing had just returned to the divine realm and had not gained a firm foothold yet. Of course, the wretched development stage was mainly for rapid development. Hundreds of Black Mermaid warriors stopped in the sky 100 miles away and waited quietly. The Black Mermaid King brought the guardians and priests to Ji Tianxing. Seeing that Ji Tianxing still had his eyes closed, the 3 of them remained silent and waited patiently. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianxing dealt with Yuan Chenkong and Yen Zong's godheads. He would first seal it in the heaven-mending pearl, and then properly refine it when he had the time. Not to mention anything else, just the divine Tao laws condensed within the 2 godheads were enough for Ji Tianxing to cultivate for a very long time. He finally opened his eyes. Shwa! A wisp of sacred golden light flashed through his eyes, as if it was tearing the sky apart. The Black Mermaid King and the other 2 were the closest. They felt their cheeks tighten as if they had been slashed by a sword light. As such, the 3 of them lowered their posture even more. Congratulations, young Master Tianxing. You have taken your revenge and killed Yuan Chenkong and Yen Zong. From now on, the City Lord's mansion will exist in name only. In the vicinity of Qingshan City, no one will be able to contend with young Master Tianxing. The Black Shark King was all smiles as he cupped his fists at Ji Tianxing to congratulate him. His smile was very sincere and his emotions were very emotional. It was impossible to tell that he had just betrayed Ji Tianxing. The Guardian and High Priest also followed suit and bowed to Ji Tianxing to congratulate him. Ji Tianqing looked at the Black Shark King expressionlessly and said in a low voice, "Take them out." The Black Shark King was stunned and looked a little awkward. He did not expect Ji Tianqing to not talk nonsense with him and go straight to the point. Of course, he knew what Ji Tianqing was talking about. He wanted to act dumb, but he did not dare to. He wanted to hand over his treasures and resources, but he could not bear to. He was very conflicted. At this moment, the white dragon had finished cleaning up the battlefield and flew back to Ji Tianqing. Seeing the Black Shark King's conflicted face, he said in a mocking tone, "What's wrong, Black Shark King? Constipated?" The Black Shark King smiled embarrassedly and obediently took out a black thumb ring and a jade ring. "Young Master Tianqing, these are the resources and treasures that Yuan Qingkong brought. I have counted them just now. There are a total of 54,000 pearls, 540 million god stones, and 54,000 sets of heaven god equipment. Now I will return them to you. Please accept them." After he finished speaking, the Black Shark King held the thumb ring and the jade ring and handed it to Ji Tianqing respectfully. Ji Tianqing did not look at the thumb ring and the jade ring. He looked at the Black Shark King indifferently and said, "Not enough." The Black Shark King's smile froze. He thought to himself, "This guy is not going to leave me any benefits at all? Too overbearing. After all, I have helped you and even cooperated with you to put on an act." Although he said that, he still took out an interspatial ring and handed it to Ji Tianqing. "Young Master Tianqing, this is the 20% deposit that Yuan Qingkong gave me. It is all in the ring. 2 rings and a thumb ring. A total of 600 million god stones, 60,000 pearls, and 60,000 sets of heaven god equipment. These were all Yuan Qingkong's asset." Ji Tianqing looked at the Black Shark King expressionlessly. His eyes became colder and colder. The Black Shark King felt guilty, but he could only force himself to smile awkwardly. "Young Master Tianqing, everything is here now." Bai Long could not help but shake his head and chuckle. "Fish die for wealth, and birds die for food. Black Shark King, you only have one chance. If you insist on acting dumb, don't blame my master for showing you his culinary skills." The Black Shark King was stunned. He asked confusedly, "What culinary skills?" Bai Long raised his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers. "Slicing fish, deboning fish, steaming, boiling, and braising." After he finished speaking, he looked at the Black Shark King seriously. "How do you want to die? Oh no. What kind of flavor do you want?" The Black Shark King understood and could not help but shrink his neck. He felt humiliated and angry. However, he did not dare to act up and could only face reality. He took out the 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl from his interspatial ring and handed it to Ji Tianqing with trembling hands. Only the heavens knew that when he gave away this dragon pearl, his heart was bleeding. He had already put a treasure in his pocket, but now he had to give it away. That feeling was simply swoosh. Ji Tianqing waved his sleeves and kept the 2 rings, the thumb ring and the 100 poison crocodile dragon pearl, into his interspatial ring. He stared at the Black Shark King with a sharp gaze and said in a dignified tone, "Black Shark King, from today onwards, you are on your own. If you continue to stir up trouble and target the Mystic Light Island and the Qi family, you know the consequences." After saying this, Ji Tianqing turned and left, flying south with Bai Long. The Black Shark King was embarrassed and angry. He gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger as he watched Ji Tianqing leave. After a long while, when Ji Tianqing and Bai Long disappeared into the horizon, the Black Shark King could not help but roar. "That damned bastard! He really didn't leave any benefits for this prince. Even if I have wronged you, I have helped you so much. How can you not be grateful at all? How dare you threaten me? Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I will make you regret being born." The guardian and high priest looked at each other with a complicated expression. After the Black Shark King calmed down, the 2 of them started to persuade him. My king, we can't beat him, and we can't fight him either. Please don't be rash. Yes, more than half of our elite experts and warriors are dead or injured. We might not be able to recover in the next 30 years. Please do not provoke him again. Otherwise, we will all be finished. The Black Shark King turned and glared at the two of them. He roared, "Of course I know. Do I need you to remind me? Can't I vent my frustrations a little?" End of chapter. Chapter 2886. A few hours later, Ji Tianqing and Bai Long returned to Mystic Light Island. When they were still 1,000 miles away from Mystic Light Island, they saw that the island's protective formation was in operation. It was glowing with colorful divine light. The monarch-grade divine formation, with a radius of 500 miles, was personally set up by Ji Tianqing. Mystic Light Island was in a defensive posture. Not only was the protective formation activated, but there were also many guards patrolling the island. When Ji Tianqing and Bai Long approached, the guards were very alert and immediately sounded the alarm. Swoosh! Swoosh! A few moments later, dozens of Qi family guards flew over from all directions, ready for battle. Bai Long was amused when he saw this. He said in a playful tone, "Isn't Qi Huangji putting on a show? Everything is settled. Why is he still putting on an act?" Ji Tianqing chuckled. "Maybe it's to make it more realistic so that the news won't be leaked. If I'm not wrong, the Qi family's core members probably haven't come up with a plan yet." His tone was mocking and full of sarcasm. Bai Long nodded. "Later, I'll have a good talk with Qi Huangji about this. It's time for him to clean up the spies in his family." At this moment, Ji Tianqing casually shot out a ray of divine light and activated the island's protective formation. He brought Bai Long through the light screen and flew into Mystic Light Island. Dozens of guards of the Qi family held swords and sabers as they rushed over murderously. When the captain of the guard saw Ji Tianqing's face clearly, he immediately stopped his charge and shouted loudly, "Don't worry, Ji Tianqing. Stop, stop. It's one of us. Reverend Tianqing is back." The dozens of guards of the Qi family were all stunned on the spot with strange expressions on their faces, revealing astonished expressions. Everyone stared at Ji Tianqing and muttered, "This is really Reverend Tianqing? Wasn't Reverend Tianqing injured by the Black Mermaid King and captured to the Black Mermaid tribe? That's right. Revered Elder Tianqing is being held captive in the Black Mermaid tribe. He's still waiting for young master to save him. Consecrated Tianqing actually came back unscathed? What's going on?" Many of the guards were a little confused, unable to make sense of the situation. They were filled with shock and doubt, but their status was too low, so they didn't dare to stop Ji Tianqing and ask him about it. Shua! While everyone was still in a daze, Ji Tianqing flew over their heads and headed straight for the profound light cave in the middle of the island. Arriving above the profound light cave, he released his divine sense and spread it out. Soon, he discovered it with his divine sense. Near the entrance of the mine, there was a magnificent palace. Qi Huangji, 2 deacons, and more than 30 core members of the Qi family were still discussing countermeasures in the great meeting hall. At this moment, Qi Huangji looked both mentally and physically exhausted. He was so anxious that his eyes were red. His attitude was resolute. He expressed that he would go bankrupt and gather 10 billion worth of wealth to rescue Ji Tianqing from the Black Mermaid tribe. The 2 deacons couldn't dissuade him. They stood silently in the great meeting hall, looking down. The 30 or so core members of the Qi family, however, were discussing animatedly. Each of them had their own opinions. It was very lively. Qi Huangji looked very helpless and dispirited. He slumped on the throne at the head of the table, rubbing his forehead as if he was anxious. In reality, he was very calm on the inside. He was even secretly sneering. "It's been 2 whole days. I've discussed with you 12 times. Every time, you found all kinds of reasons and excuses to stop me from rescuing Brother Tianqing. Perhaps, seeing my helpless, anxious, and helpless appearance, you feel very satisfied in your hearts, and even despise me, right? Ha ha! I remember it all. I'll settle accounts with those who were the happiest soon. Previously, Ji Tianqing had sent him a message and asked him to cooperate with him to put on a show. He had fooled everyone. His acting was very realistic and on point. During this time, he looked anxious and worried on the surface, but in reality, he was secretly observing the 30 or so core members. He knew who was harboring what intentions and who was disloyal. He even knew who could be spies from other factions. Now, he only hoped that Ji Tianqing would return soon. Once this show was over, he would clean up the house. The core members had been arguing and discussing for an hour, and there was no sign of them stopping. Qi Huangji was frustrated and stood up. With a dark face, he shouted angrily, "A bunch of trash! After so long, you still can't come up with a solution. How dare you make a fuss here? Get out of here, all of you! Don't you need to work in the mines and workshops?" Qi Huangji scolded everyone. Many of the core members shrunk their necks and stared at the ground in silence. The two deacons also came out to smooth things over. They waved their hands and said, "All right, today's meeting is over. Everyone, go back to work." Many of the core members were relieved. After bowing, they turned and left the great meeting hall. However, a few core members seemed to be unhappy. They looked down on Qi Huangji in their hearts, but they were scolded in public. How could they endure it? A burly middle-aged steward said with a fake smile, "Young master, no matter how important consecrator Tianqing is, he can't compare to the family's assets of 10 billion yuan. If he was really so powerful, why would he be captured by the Black Mermaid King and unable to escape? Moreover, the Qi family's ancestors worked hard for 1,000 years to accumulate the family's assets today. You are still too young and impulsive. How can you ruin the family's foundation for a consecrator? You should report such a big matter to the family head and let him decide." On the surface, this person was persuading Qi Huangji for the sake of the Qi family's foundation. However, his tone was arrogant and unruly, and he was very impudent to Qi Huangji. The meaning of his words was that what was the big deal about a consecrator dying? The Qi family had 10 billion yuan, so they could find another one in the future. Qi Huangji was a useless piece of trash and didn't have the ability to deal with this matter. "Don't make a fuss. Go find your father and let him decide." Qi Huangji was immediately enraged. He glared at the middle-aged steward and shouted angrily, "Qin Feng, how dare you insult this young master?" The middle-aged steward named Qin Feng said with a smile, "Young master, please calm down. I am also thinking of the Qi family's foundation. I am just speaking the truth. How is that an insult?" The other 4 stewards also nodded in agreement and tried to persuade him. "Young master, please calm down. Steward Qin is also working hard for the family and exhausting his mind." "That's right. Steward Qin can't bear to see you unable to sleep and eat well, so he helped you come up with a plan. He has good intentions. Steward Qin is not the only one who cares about the family. All of us are the same. We can't bear to see you make a mistake and cause a disaster. Young master, please calm down and think about it carefully." Seeing this scene, Qi Huangji pointed at them and laughed in anger. "Good. Very good. Your wings have hardened, right?" The 2 stewards also felt that the 5 stewards were acting strangely, so they scolded, "The 5 of you, why aren't you apologizing to the young master? As servants, how can you be qualified to comment on the young master's right and wrong? Why aren't you apologizing and getting out of the hall?" The 5 stewards naturally refused to apologize. They were unconvinced and wanted to argue a little more. At this moment, a white figure appeared out of thin air in the hall and stepped on Steward Qin's head. End of chapter. Chapter 2887. Die, you little clown. A cold and majestic roar suddenly exploded in the main hall. What followed was a supreme divine power that suppressed the heavens and the earth, invisibly sealing the entire main hall. Bam! There was a muffled explosion. Before Steward Qin could react, He was stepped on by the white figure and fell to the ground with a plop. His head instantly exploded like a watermelon that fell from a high place. Pieces of flesh and blood splattered all over the faces of the surrounding 4 people. The thick smell of blood immediately spread in the main hall. The sudden turn of events left everyone dumbstruck. There was dead silence in the main hall. One could hear a pin drop. Those standing in the main hall, those who had not left in time, and those beside Steward Cheen all stared at the white figure with their mouths agape. When they saw the newcomer's face clearly, everyone was filled with shock. Their eyes were filled with fear and astonishment. The 2 deacons were also stunned. Their eyes were wide open, and they looked as if they had seen a ghost. Only Chi Huanji, who was at the head of the table, was stunned for a moment before regaining his senses. He stared at the white-robed youth with burning eyes and revealed a look of surprise. He laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha! Brother Tianqing, you're finally back. You're just in time." There was no doubt. The white-robed youth, who appeared out of thin air and stepped on Steward Cheen, was Ji Tianqing. Chi Huanji's loud laughter awakened everyone in the main hall. The 2 deacons and the many backbones only then regained their senses and immediately burst into a series of exclamations. "Oh my God! It's actually revered Elder Tianqing? Isn't he imprisoned in the Black Mermaid tribe?" Revered Elder Tianqing was clearly injured by the Black Mermaid King and was even imprisoned. How is it possible? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? He actually came back unscathed? Who can tell me what's going on? At this moment, everyone felt that their brains had short-circuited and were completely unable to comprehend the situation. No matter how astute a person was, he was still dumbfounded and confused. This was too strange. Only Chi Huanji knew the inside story and was in an extremely good mood. He flew towards Ji Tianqing and opened his arms as if he wanted to hug him. However, just as he pounced in front of Ji Tianqing, the white dragon appeared. "Hey! Young master, please control yourself." As he spoke, Bai Long grabbed Chi Huanji. Unable to move, Chi Huanji asked in confusion, "White dragon, why haven't I heard of this before? Did you make it up yourself?" "That's not important." Bai Long waved his hand and pointed at Steward Cheen's corpse. "Let's clean up the house first." Meanwhile, a divine deity covered in cracks flew out from Steward Cheen's corpse and fled to the entrance of the main hall as fast as lightning. With a wave of his sleeve, Ji Tianqing grabbed the godhead and held it in his hand. No matter how hard Steward Cheen struggled, he was unable to move. Ji Tianqing looked sharply at the other 4 stewards and said in a dignified tone, "Who are you? Why did he sneak into the Qi clan? What schemes did he have? Tell me the truth." The 4 stewards were enveloped by his divine aura and immediately trembled in fear. Their legs gave way and they knelt on the ground. "Master, please spare my life. This lowly one knows his mistake. Master, this lowly one has been wronged. Master, please forgive this lowly one. This lowly one knows his mistake and will definitely turn over a new leaf." The 4 stewards, who had been arrogant just a moment ago, were now like stray dogs, terrified and uneasy. The 4 of them knelt on the ground and begged for mercy or cried out their grievances. There was nothing they could do. The master in front of them was too valiant and ruthless. They dared to fool and mock Chi Huanji, but they did not dare to play tricks in front of Ji Tianqing. After all, this master killed people like killing chickens and did not ask whether they were right or wrong. Who dared to be arrogant? Who dared to talk back? "I guarantee that you will lie down on the ground and be beheaded." Seeing this scene, Chi Huanji chuckled, feeling extremely satisfied. "Ha ha! Weren't the 4 of you arrogant dogs pointing fingers at me just now?" Chi Huanji walked in front of the 4 stewards and sneered arrogantly. "Master Tianqing is so wise and powerful. How could he be captured by the Black Mermaid King? Do you think that I've lost my mind and accomplished nothing without the help of Consecrator Tianqing? Ha ha ha! This is the scheme of Master Tianqing and I. We worked together to put on a show. I just played a little trick, and all of you revealed your true colors. You want to fight with me with just this bit of ability? Naive. Qi Huangji's words instantly caused an uproar in the main hall. The two stewards and the many backbones were enlightened. Everyone was shocked and exclaimed in disbelief. They started to whisper to each other. Oh my God! So this matter was young Master's scheme from the beginning? Too amazing! Young Master actually deceived everyone. We all believed him. In that case, not only were we deceived, but the Yuan City Lord was also fooled. What an exciting show! Young Master's strategy and methods have already surpassed his master. Master Tianqing is so powerful. Young Master is wise and unparalleled in his schemes. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions and listening to their exclamations and praises, Qi Huangji was overjoyed. He felt as if he was floating. Humph! You are really short-sighted. Do you really think that I am a useless person? I used to hide my abilities and deliberately pretended to be a useless person. I only revealed my intelligence and wisdom at the crucial moment and amazed the world. Which of the young masters of the major families in Green Mountain City can be compared to me? I am the smartest. Qi Huangji improvised and talked non-stop, blowing his own trumpet. Bai Long could not stand it anymore. He secretly tugged at Qi Huangji's sleeve and sent a voice transmission. Ahem. You should take it easy. Don't brag too much. Otherwise you will be exposed. Qi Huangji blinked at him and sent a voice transmission. This is the best opportunity for me to establish my prestige and change everyone's opinion. If I miss this opportunity, it will be very difficult in the future. Aren't I very smart? Bai Long nodded and said with a strange smile, Yes, you are too wise. Qi Huangji looked at him suspiciously and muttered, Why do I feel like you are scolding me? At this moment, Ji Tianqing interrupted their conversation. Huangji, I will leave these 4 stewards to you. No matter what method you use, find out everything about them. Qi Huangji quickly nodded and ordered the 2 deacons, Tie these 4 bastards up and throw them into the underground prison. I will interrogate them personally. The 2 deacons tied up the 4 stewards and sealed their divine powers and divine senses. They were about to bring them down. Ji Tianqing waved the divinity in his hand and said to the 4 stewards, Qin Feng's divinity is here. As long as I search his divine soul and memory, all your secrets will be exposed. So, if you confess your crimes honestly, you will suffer less. Chapter 2888. There was no need for Ji Tianqing to deal with such a trivial matter. He believed that Qi Huangji already knew the answer and would be able to solve it soon. After leaving the meeting hall, he entered a secret chamber alone and prepared to cultivate. White Dragon stayed by Qi Huangji's side to help him plan and interrogate him. After all, White Dragon was the best at torture. In a dark secret chamber, the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower floated in the air. Ji Tianqing entered the 6th floor of the tower and cultivated in the distorted spacetime. He made hand seals and secretly activated the heaven-mending orb. Yuan Chenkong and Yen Zong's godheads were sealed in the heaven-mending orb. Although 30% of their divine power had been devoured, their divine souls, memories, and laws still existed. Ji Tianqing decided to devour Yuan Chenkong and Yen Zong's divine souls and memories first. Yuan Chenkong was dead, and the city lord's mansion existed in name only. However, Princess Tianfeng was behind Yuan Chenkong. Ji Tianqing needed to know more secrets so that he could deal with Princess Tianfeng's revenge in the future. In addition, Yen Zong was Yuan Chenkong's confidant and had always been mysterious and low-key. It was necessary to know more about him. As time passed, Ji Tianqing used the soul-searching divine power to quickly absorb the memories in the 2 godhead. Vast amounts of information flowed into his divine soul, and he memorized them. Naturally, he also learned many secrets about Yen Zong and Yuan Chenkong. There were many crucial pieces of information. For example, the method to open the City Lord's mansion's treasure vault. There were more than 50 billion worth of resources stored inside. Princess Tianfeng was a 6th-level Divine Lord and was about to break through to the 7th level to become an upper-level Divine Lord. Yan Zong came from the distant Songshan Empire and was an abandoned disciple of the Shadow Sect. He betrayed the Shadow Sect and crossed over 1 billion miles to hide in the remote Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. He lived a mysterious and low-key life. The Shadow Sect was one of the top 10 superpowers in the Songshan Empire and had a half-step Divine King. In addition, Yan Zong had mastered the 3 ultimate techniques of the Shadow Sect and mastered 3 special divine powers. Half a day later, Yuan Chenkong and Yan Zong's divine souls and memories were devoured by Ji Tianxing. He began to refine the 2 godheads, absorbing the god force within them and stripping them of their godheads. What surprised him was that Yuan Chenkong's godhead had actually condensed 27 Tao laws. Yama Zong's godhead had condensed 30 laws. Compared to ordinary middle-level divine lords, these 2 people were considered to have deep foundations and had hopes of advancing to high-level divine lords. Fortunately, they did not grasp a secret technique that overlaps the laws. Otherwise, their combat prowess would be even stronger. It would be very difficult for me to kill the 2 of them. Ji Tianxing secretly rejoiced and started to devour their divine Tao laws. These 2 people had condensed a total of 57 laws. Excluding the laws that Ji Tianxing already possessed and the duplicate laws, there were still 20 laws left. Ji Tianxing stripped and condensed them one by one. Time passed quickly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, unknowingly, a month had passed. Ji Tianxing took those 20 laws and refined them into his godhead. Not long ago, he killed Lu Jiuchong and Bloodsword Sect's 4th elder. He also killed many Bloodsword Sect disciples and Lu family disciples. Those 600 over godhead fragments had long been devoured and refined by him. He had condensed 60 laws in his godhead. Now, adding these 20 laws, the divine Tao laws that he possessed reached as many as 80. This number was very terrifying. Normally, only high-level divine lords could grasp so many laws. At the same time, the 2 godheads were also completely devoured by the heaven-mending bead. Boundless God Force also became Ji Tianxing's strength. He ended cultivation and discovered to his astonishment that he actually broke through the limit and reached 1st-level Divine Lord realm. From now on, he was a low-level Divine Lord. I thought that there would be a bottleneck when breaking through to Divine Lord, needing to accumulate for a very long time before successfully breaking through. Didn't expect that without any bottlenecks or setbacks, success came naturally just like that. Ji Tianxing muttered a few sentences, feeling deeply gratified. If it were any other celestial deity, they would encounter a bottleneck when breaking through to Divine Lord realm. At least several hundred years, at most several thousand years of accumulation before being able to smoothly advance. But he was an anomaly. After he reached peak celestial deity, his strength actually strengthened by 99 times. Surveying the world, who else had a deeper foundation than him? Therefore, when he devoured the divine sparks of 2 middle-level divine lords and condensed 60 laws, he naturally broke through. Reaching 1st-level divine lord realm, he entered a brand new realm. Compared to celestial deity realm, divine lord realm was even more profound and unfathomable, possessing vast magical powers. Every breath, every action contained laws and divine power, being commanded freely. With a raise of the hand, one could control heaven and earth, communicate with the stars beyond the heavens, and control all kinds of divine power, possessing all kinds of inconceivable divine abilities. The most basic change was that lifespan also reached 200,000 years from 100,000 years. Even though Ji Tianxing successfully broke through to 1st-level Divine Lord, he was not in a hurry to leave in a hurry. However, he was not in a hurry to leave the Divine Pagoda. he still needed to cultivate for a period of time to strengthen his foundation of the divine path. He took out that 100-poison crocodile dragon bead from his spatial ring again and observed it carefully. The fist-sized divine bead gave off a dazzling 5-colored light, releasing mysterious power undulations. Ji Tianqing utilized the divine pupil mystic art and observed carefully. Before long, he saw through the clues. This 100-poison crocodile dragon bead should be the ancient crocodile dragon's dragon bead. To that ancient crocodile dragon, this was an important item second only to the godhead. Inside, not only did it contain the ancient crocodile dragon's powerful divine power, there were also over 100 kinds of horrifying, highly toxic poisons. Any kind of highly toxic power could poison and kill deities below the level of High Divine Lord. Of course, the 100-poison crocodile dragon bead could only unleash such power when it was in the ancient crocodile dragon's body at its prime. Now, no idea how many tens of thousands of years had passed. The 100-poison crocodile dragon bead's power was mostly lost. The power of the 100 kinds of highly toxic poisons was also greatly reduced. But even so, Ji Tianqing also believed that those highly toxic poisons could threaten the lives of middle-level Divine Lord. He learned from Yuan Chenkong's divine soul memories that as early as over 100 years ago, Yuan Chenkong obtained this 100-poison crocodile dragon bead. It was just a pity that Yuan Chenkong could not do anything to those highly toxic poisons and could not refine them. That feeling was like a dog biting a hedgehog, unable to bite down. Yuan Chenkong planned to borrow the power of the crocodile dragon bead when he reached peak 6th-level Divine Lord and assailed 7th-level Divine Lord. But now, it all benefited Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing held the 100-poison crocodile dragon bead in his hand and tried to release divine power to refine it. However, his divine power had just entered the crocodile dragon bead when it was corroded and dissipated by the highly toxic poisons. So much so that those highly toxic poisons even spread out and corroded his divine power and divine body. Ji Tianqing hurriedly withdrew his divine power and muttered to himself, "No wonder Yuan Chenkong is helpless. This highly toxic power is not what he can touch at all. But I don't have to worry." The corners of his mouth curled into a hint of a smile. Urging the power of the heaven-mending pearl, he cast the devouring divine ability and began to devour the crocodile dragon bead. End of this chapter. Chapter 2889. Even though the 100 poisons crocodile dragon pearl contained potent poison, the number was as many as 100 types, the power incomparably terrifying. Only high-ranking divine lords had the qualifications and ability to directly refine it. But to the heaven-mending pearl, these were all just pure power. Going through the heaven-mending pearl's devouring and purification, the 100 types of potent poisons all became docile, merging into Ji Tianqing's body unceasingly. As for the divine power contained in the crocodile dragon pearl, it was devoured by the heaven-mending pearl. Very soon, 5 days' time passed. The 100 poisons crocodile dragon pearl disappeared. The 100 types of potent poisons were all refined by Ji Tianqing. He grasped the 100 poisons and could display and use them smoothly and freely. Fusing them in some divine abilities and mystic arts, it would even have a powerful effect that was unexpected. But he was not satisfied with this. He continued cultivating again, dividing those 100 types of potent poisons into 5 major categories. The first category of potent poisons had berserk power and could instantly take lives. The second category of potent poisons possessed super corrosive power. Regardless of whether it was rocks, steel, or divine weapons and armors, it could all corrode them into ashes. The third category of potent poisons specialized in corroding flesh and blood life. The fourth category of potent poisons targeted the divine soul specifically. As for the fifth category of potent poisons, the attributes were more chaotic. Some were subtle, requiring a very long time before they could manifest power. Some possessed terrifying infectivity, often able to last for several tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, exterminating all life. Ji Tianqing fused the power of these 5 great categories of potent poisons, condensing into one law after another. 3 days later, the berserk potent poison law condensed successfully. 6 days later, the corrosive potent poison law condensed and took form. 9 days later, the blood-transforming potent poison law was mastered. 12 days later, the soul-extinguishing potent poison law was mastered successfully. 15 days later, the last mystic poison law was mastered. At this point, Ji Tianqing grasped 85 kinds of divine Tao laws. Although his strength realm was still first-level Divine Lord realm, his true combat strength already reached an extremely terrifying level. He revolved his skill and recuperated for another 2 days before ending closed seclusion cultivation and leaving the Divine Tower. Swoosh! A light flashed. Ji Tianqing returned to the secret chamber. He put away the 9 heavens 10 absolute pagoda, opened the secret chamber's door, and walked out. I was in closed seclusion for 50 days in the Divine Tower, only 1 day has passed in the outside world. Qi Huangji should have finished cleaning up the household already, right? With this thought in mind, Ji Tianqing walked towards the Great Council Hall. When he entered the meeting hall, he saw a group of Qi family guards escorting 3 stewards out. The 3 stewards were all in ragged clothes and covered in blood. They looked dispirited and weak. Evidently, the 3 of them had all been tortured miserably. In the great council hall, Qi Huangji sat at the head of the table, with the white dragon standing beside him. More than 20 stewards and 2 deacons were standing in the middle of the hall, looking cautious and fearful. The air was still filled with the thick smell of blood. In the middle of the hall there was a corpse lying on the ground. Fresh blood was flowing out of the corpse. It was obvious that the corpse had just been executed. Seeing Ji Tianqing appear, Qi Huangji nodded slightly and greeted him. "Brother Tianqing, the situation has been investigated." Qi Huangji planned to report the investigation to Ji Tianqing face to face. Ji Tianqing glanced at the people in the hall and waved his hand. "You may leave first. You have all seen what happened today with your own eyes. Take this as a warning. In the future, if anyone dares to make the same mistake, they will suffer the same fate." The 2 deacons and 20 stewards nodded in unison. Then, they bowed and left the hall as if relieved of a heavy burden. All along, everyone had thought that Qi Huangji had a good temper. Although he was a bit of a profligate, he was considered gentle and not scheming. But this time, they had witnessed Qi Huangji's shrewdness and methods. In the great council hall, they had witnessed Qi Huangji killing people with a sword and dealing with spies. Everyone's impression of him had been overturned. Only then did they realize that he had a ruthless and decisive side. The hour just now had been very torturous for everyone. Everyone was anxious and uneasy, and their hearts were in turmoil. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing arrived in time and waved his hand to dismiss them. Only then did they feel relieved. Naturally, they left as quickly as possible. After everyone had left, only Ji Tianqing and Bai Long were left in the hall. Qi Huangji then said, "Brother Tianqing, with Bai Long's help, I've found out the truth. Qin Feng and Ming Yang were both spies groomed by the city lord's mansion. They were planted in the Qi mansion 30 years ago. They were the city lord's mansion's spies and stole a lot of the Qi family's secrets. You've already killed Qin Feng, and I've punished Ming Yang in public as punishment. After today's incident, many of the core members are intimidated and have lingering fears. I believe that for a long time, they won't dare to act rashly." Then, Qi Huangji smiled and cupped his hands in salute. "This time, it's all thanks to you that I have the chance to establish my prestige." Ji Tianqing nodded nonchalantly and asked, "When I came in just now, I saw the 3 stewards being escorted out. What happened to them?" Qi Huangji hurriedly explained, "Those 3 stewards weren't spies from other factions. It's just that they took bribes and were roped in by Qin Feng and Ming Yang. That's why they wallowed in the mire. Although they didn't know Qin Feng's identity, they didn't betray or plot to destroy the Qi family. But they were blinded by greed and almost committed a grave mistake. I demoted them, punished them with 300 lashes, and sent them to the mine to work for 10 years as punishment. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and chuckled. Speaking of which, they haven't committed a grave mistake, but you punish them so harshly. Aren't you afraid that they'll harbor resentment and revolt or betray the Qi family? Qi Huangji said confidently, I want to use this opportunity to establish my prestige. Of course, I have to punish them severely. They can only blame themselves for not having eyes and bumping into me. They deserve to be punished. Besides, now that the city lord's mansion has been destroyed, the Qi family is the strongest faction in Qingshan City. No matter how much resentment those three fellows have, they won't dare to betray the Qi family. After leaving the Qi family, they're nothing. Who else can they rely on? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, All right, I'll leave these internal affairs to you. Soon, I might have to leave Qingshan City. From now on, the Qi family's foundation will depend on you to protect it. Hearing this news, Qi Huangji's body trembled and revealed a reluctant expression. It can't be? We've worked so hard for so long and finally achieved a great victory. We're about to usher in our most glorious moment. Aren't you going to stay for a while longer? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Ji Tianqing said calmly, The city lord's mansion exists in name only, and the Lu family has become an empty shell. Now, the Qi family is the strongest in Qingshan City, and no other faction can contend against them. If I'm not wrong, Qingshan City will soon fall into the Qi family's control. It looks like the situation is going well. But don't forget, we still have two more powerful enemies, Princess Tianfeng and Master Blood Sword. Chapter 2890. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Qi Huangji fell silent. He frowned and asked, I understand, but why do you want to leave Green Mountain City? I know you're not afraid of trouble. Neither would he be afraid of Princess Tianfeng and the Blood Sword sect, abandoning the Qi clan and fleeing alone. If we work together, won't we have a better chance of winning? Ji Tianqing patted him on the shoulder and shook his head with a smile. You can't be blindly optimistic. You have to accept reality. Even if I work with the Qi family, we may not be able to defeat Princess Tianfeng and the Blood Sword sect. Instead, we'll drag the Qi family into a quagmire. Qi Huangji immediately understood his intentions. His heart was filled with shock and gratitude, and his nose felt a little sour. Brother Tianqing, you don't want to implicate the Qi family, so you cut ties with us? But if you leave Green Mountain City, you'll have to face the revenge of Princess Tianfeng and the Blood Sword sect alone. Isn't that very dangerous? How is our Qi family worthy of your protection? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with an indifferent smile, All right, don't be so emotional. I'm not as great as you think. If you feel guilty, why don't you take out more treasures to make it up to me? Qi Huangji was stunned for a moment and smiled bitterly. Of course, I can make it up to you. Divine beast mounts, divine stones, pills, weapons, and equipment, you can choose whatever you want. Ji Tianqing shook his head. Forget it, I don't need any of these things. If you really want to repay me, I'll go to Mine 9 to cultivate for 10 days. Then we'll call it even. That's all? Qi Huangji was shocked and his eyes widened in disbelief. No. Absolutely not. He waved his hand and said firmly, If you want to cultivate in Mine 9, you can do it for as many days as you want. Also, I'll prepare a big gift for you. When you leave Green Mountain City, I'll give it to you. Ji Tianqing didn't refuse and nodded. All right, that's it then. Also, I have 50,000 pearls and 50,000 sets of heavenly god equipment. Help me deal with them. What? 50,000 sets of heavenly god equipment? Qi Huangji's eyes widened. He was so shocked that he almost bit his tongue. Brother Tianqing, are you kidding me? How can we deal with 50,000 sets of heavenly god equipment? Even a set of low-level heavenly god equipment can be sold for 40,000 divine stones. If it's a high-quality heavenly divine artifact, a set would cost at least 160,000 divine stones. That would be 8 billion. Even though the Qi family was the wealthiest, it was nothing compared to the city's mansion, the city. And the Qis, they. 50,000 heavenly god equipment alone equipment was half of the heavenly god's. Was to say, the to make to Tian. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's true. With the Qi family's financial resources, it'll be difficult to deal with this batch of goods. It'll take at least decades. In the whole of Qingshan City, there was no one who could take on this batch of goods." "Huangji, how many to?" A bitter smile appeared on Qi Huangji's face. He deliberated for a moment before extending 2 fingers. 20,000 sets? Bai Long asked. Qi Huangji shook his head. 2,000 and it'll take half a month. Ji Tianqing waved his hand. "Forget it. That's too slow. I'll figure it out myself." Qi Huangji's eyes glowed as he thought of an idea. "Right, if you're in a hurry, you can go to Ning Siyuan in the Tianxue County. The Nings are one of the wealthiest families in the Tianxue County. They're not only in the pet and pellet business but also in the equipment business. I think they'll be able to help you in no time." Ji Tianqing nodded. "Okay, I see. Let's talk about it later. If there's nothing else, I'm going to cultivate in the 9th mine. Don't let anyone disturb me. Also, Huangji, keep collecting information about the City Lord Mansion, the Lu family, and the Blood Sword sect. When will your father return to the Tianxue County? When will the Qi family be granted the title by the Emperor?" Qi Huangji cupped his hands and said, "Okay, I'll send someone to collect information. You can cultivate in peace." Then, Bai Long followed Ji Tianqing out of the hall and into the cave of dark light. Qi Huangji summoned 2 bodyguards and ordered them to gather information. On the way to the cave of dark light, Bai Long was puzzled. He asked Ji Tianqing through telepathy, "Master, there are only about 2,000 guards and private soldiers in the City Lord's mansion. That old bastard Yuan Trinkong refined 50,000 sets of equipment. What's he up to?" Ji Tianqing said calmly, "Divine weapons and equipment can be used to equip soldiers, and can also be used as currency for transactions. The Tianxue County is small, but Yuan Chenkong's backer is Princess Tianfeng. I think he's working for Princess Tianfeng." Bai Long nodded and said, "That's right. There are at least 40 to 50,000 soldiers under Princess Tianfeng's command." Ji Tianqing continued, "I've checked Yuan Chenkong's and Yan Zong's space rings. There are tens of billions of god stones, all kinds of elixirs, materials for charms, and rare treasures. In addition to the 6 monarch-level divine weapons, there are many secret books and 40,000 sets of divine realm equipment. Roughly, the value of these resources is more than 30 billion. Bai Long was shocked. He sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Damn! Together with the 50,000 pearls and divine realm equipment, it's worth 40 billion. How can a mere city lord of the Tianxue County be so rich? Back then, when I followed you to the realm of the gods, I only had a few 100 billion. Ji Tianqing said with a smile, "When we traveled around, we didn't deliberately accumulate wealth. Naturally, we weren't rich. Moreover, we only lived in the realm of the gods for 500 years. Yuan Chenkong's forces have been accumulating for almost 1,000 years. Moreover, the City Lord Mansion has taken control of the Cave of Dark Light and is crazily seizing resources." Bai Long nodded in agreement and reminded him, "No matter what, Master, you have to be careful of Princess Tianfeng. I always feel that the City Lord of the Qingshan County is very important to Princess Tianfeng. You killed the City Lord of the Qingshan County, and Princess Tianfeng will not let it go." Ji Tianqing's expression was calm as he dismissed it with a smile. "I'll deal with it when the time comes. No matter how strong they are, they're just an army. What's there to be afraid of? While chatting, the master and disciple entered mine number 9. 10 guards of the Qi family were supervising and hundreds of miners were working hard. When they saw Ji Tianxing, they bowed to him. Bai Long ordered everyone to stop working and leave mine number 9. Then, Bai Long stood guard at the entrance of the mine to protect Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing went deep into the mine and sat cross-legged on the divine essence vein. He began to cultivate,